Mr. Cruz?
Present.
Mr. Frazier is not here. Mr. Lance?
Yeah.
Ms. Seymour? Here. Mr. Sizer is not here. Ms. Jordan?
Here.
You have 4 members present.
Okay, good. We have a full agenda this evening. There's 2 items I'd like to bring forward this evening, and I want them to be discussed first. And if you could pass that down to me, Ms. Seymour, and if everyone can take one, as well as this one, as well, Mr. Joan. And I'll wait for everyone to get here. And I'm going to be introducing the Human Rights Ordinance for the City of Southfield. And I believe there's an immediate need to act, and if we could have a Rule 10, I believe we've delayed long enough. This ordinance really is the backbone of human rights legislation and really reaffirms Title VII, which comes from the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution, which guarantees equal protection under the law. And having worked for the U.S. Opportunity Commission, the regional office in the case over 8 years, we implemented this ordinance in exactly what it dictates. And we've investigated injustices, and I represent all the people of Southfield, and I highly am supportive of this endorsement, and this is who I am. So I'm going to be asking for a Rule 10 tonight if we can move forward on adopting the Human Rights Ordinance. And this is one that was drafted by our city attorney.
It's well on its way.
Okay.
The only thing that I didn't get to, because I wanted to have a discussion with council on, what type of penalties would you like to see? Many of these ordinances impose civil infractions, which means we would actually issue a civil infraction, we would take it to court, the person would then be found responsible or not responsible. Other of these ordinances just have it go through like the city administrator's office, and the city administrator can issue like a conciliatory agreement where the parties work this out. I wanted to kind of have that discussion just to see where, and that's why in the draft I had never gotten to the penalties. So is that something that we could talk about and maybe have this on the 26th for introduction, as opposed to doing it? So when you say, like,
Actually, I thought it was ready to go based upon what you...
Yeah, I just, like I say, it could be dealt with in many kind of varieties, and these ordinances are, and I just wanted to make sure council was okay with going the civil infraction route versus some other route. And other than the committee, the legislative committee that we took this to last year, I think they were fine with almost any way of coming to a resolution when there's a potential violation. So if council were to say, we're satisfied with what civil infraction, maybe you could take a consensus tonight that we're good with it, and then I'll have it actually suited up, ready in final format, and we could introduce it on the 26th, the next regular.
What's a civil infraction? What do you
As opposed to a criminal misdemeanor, a civil infraction imposes fines.
Okay.
So, for example, let's say that somebody came in and obviously we need to work with the police department on the protocol for enforcing this, but generally what would happen is somebody would come in, probably work through the detectives bureau, they would gather the facts, find out, was there a violation of this, was there unlawful discrimination under the ordinance, and then it would come over to our office, there would be a civil infraction, it's like a ticket, a civil ticket written.
As opposed to being sent to doing prison or something?
Right, well, potentially, when there's a misdemeanor, you could go to jail. A civil infraction, there's not a jail sentence whatsoever, it's all a fine.
Okay.
And we could build it, some of the ordinances that I've seen throughout the state, some have kind of a nominal fine for a first offense, and then if you're found responsible a second time, then that fine might be more significant at that point. So there are a lot of ways that we could do it, but like I say, this was kind of what I had done last year. If council's ready to do it, I certainly could add the penalties and bring it on the 26th, and then we would go through our regular fashion where it's approved and introduced, and then go from there.
Mr. Lance?
Question. In this thing, if you find somebody guilty of whatever, discrimination or whatever there is, which court do they go to?
They would go to the 46th district.
Not in Lansing?
No, our court,
Oh,
our district court.
okay. I have a problem with, well, I'll talk to you about the, everything.
Any other questions, counsel? So at this point, without any opposition, Ms. Ward, if you can check on what a civil infraction
Okay,
would mean, including that.
okay,
into-
I certainly will do that, and we put it on the 26th, we do that goal, okay?
If you can compare what other cities
Sure.
are doing, Farmington Hills. as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
I have most of the ordinances from the state, so I thought the state, so, okay.
Would you have extra copy?
Oh, sure, you can have mine, I got that.
Okay, council, the next item I wanted to bring before we move forward is a selection of council president pro tem. And then if we could entertain any nominations at this point.
Yeah, I'd move, or nominate Myron Frazier.
I nominate,
So, Nancy, I know you weren't prepared, can you?
I actually was prepared.
Oh, you were, great.
And this, just to clarify, this would be another acting
Acting
position
position.
while all of our actings are in place.
Okay.
Okay, so we've got, Myron Frazier for Myron Frazier, Ken Stiver for Myron Frazier, Lloyd Cruz for Joan Seymour, Sylvia Jordan for Joan Seymour, Joan Seymour for Joan Seymour, and Sid Lance for Joan Seymour. So we've got 4 for Joan Seymour and 2 for Myron Frazier.
So that will fill the acting position of council president pro tem. All right, now we can move to the regular items on our agenda, and before we get started, we would like to welcome Mr. Lloyd Cruz to the table. He's our newly appointed city council president. All right, the first item on our agenda is the Northland Bus Transit Center. And that's our chief, Mr.
And good evening, Madam President, council members, and Mayor Cassie, and other city officials, and members of the community, and other city department members. Council, I'm here this evening to ask that you support the Detroit Transit Police Department's request to become deputized by the Oakland County Sheriff's Department. And, Madam President, I'm sorry. Okay. All right. Again, good evening, everyone. I'm here to request that council supports the Detroit Transit Police Department's request to become deputized by the Oakland County Sheriff's Department. And Madam President, if with your permission, I'd like to bring up the police chief for the Detroit Transit Police Department to join me up here. And this is Chief Sidney Bogan.
And if you could give us his business address for the record.
Yes.
Good afternoon. How's everyone? Okay. I'm at the Buell Building. Let me see if I've got a card. I think it's 1520. I didn't bring it with me. I think it's the Buell Building. It's on the 4th floor, downtown city of Detroit. We are the Detroit Transit Corporation, and I didn't bring a card.
That's okay. That's
okay. But I can email the address, all the contact information.
And Council, Detroit Transit Police Department provides bus security for the Detroit Department of Transportation. So they have their sworn officers who are on the buses in Detroit. Our Northland Bus Transit Center is a hub for the Detroit Department of Transportation. So their buses are actually going down our Northland Center. Right now, Detroit Transit Police has their officers on those buses. They're fully sworn in Wayne County. They have no police powers in Oakland County. And so when they're in our city, they're pretty much just eyes and ears. They have no authority to take any action when things are happening. Right now, the Northland Hub has a high cost for service for the Southfield Police Department. And it requires that we spend considerable amount of resources in order to address those concerns down there. So when we have issues, our officers are actually down there taking care of those types of things. Alice Seabees coordinated this potential collaboration, whereas the Detroit Transit Police will actually, if they had police powers in Oakland County, they could actually take some action down at the Northland Transit Center for us. And so we had a chit-chat with Chief Bogan, and what he's proposing is to go to the Oakland County Sheriff's Department and become deputized in Oakland County. And what that would allow them to do is to handle any type of criminal activity in Oakland County, particularly in the city of Southfield. Now, Chief Bogan and his department does not necessarily, they don't need the permission from the Southfield Police Department to do this. They're coming to us as a courtesy. Since if they are deputized by Oakland County, they will be taking some action in the city of Southfield. So what they're asking is that when they go to the Oakland County Sheriff's Department, the city of Southfield not only not opposes their request to become deputized, but we actually support their efforts to do so. If in fact this happens, then when their buses are in the city of Southfield down at our Northland Transit Center, his officers, if they observe any type of criminal activity, they will then become authorized to take any police action at that center. Benefits to the city of Southfield is that now I will be able to redirect some of my resources to other areas. Again, I'm spending a considerable amount of resources down in that area. And so for a lot of the minor issues that we're seeing down there, gambling, some harassments, those types of things, Chief Bogan and his officers will then, at that point, be able to take action if they see those types of things. And again, we can redirect our resources. So in a nutshell, that's what that is. I have Chief Bogan here with me, so if there's any questions for him, he'd be happy to address those questions for you.
Mr. Lance.
That includes drugs, alcohol? That includes drugs?
Yes, sir.
Marijuana?
Yes, sir.
All right, that's the only question. Oh, another one. If you find some activity and you have to jail them, Chief, does he bring them to our jail or Oakland County?
Right now, we have not yet figured that piece of it out. Now, if they make an arrest, they can take those arrests up to Oakland County. That's a given. But the only part that creates some complications for us is that we have a contract with G4S for our lockup services. And so any additional services on our behalf may affect our contract. So we have not yet addressed that with G4S. And so if, in fact, they receive this deputation that they're asking for, at that point, we'll get with G4S and see if this is something that's possible, or, and again, at the very least, they can take those arrests up to Oakland County.
Who does the transportation?
They would do their own transportation. And also, one last thing, Council, we ran this by our risk management coordinator from the City of Southfield. I know Madam President had a question about the liability issue. And the risk management coordinator got with MMRMA representatives, and the feedback we got from them is that there is no liability on the part of the Southfield Police or the City of Southfield. This is an agreement between the Detroit Transit Police and Oakland County Sheriff's Department only. The City of Southfield is not involved in this agreement between them, and therefore there are no liability issues for us if, in fact, the Detroit Transit Police takes any action under the auspices of the Oakland County Sheriff's Department in our city.
Who is the risk management? Who are they?
Well, it's the Michigan Municipal Risk Management Authority, of which we are a member. Southfield is a member of that. It's a group of municipalities who formed together back in the 80s, and that's where our liability insurance comes from. That's where our lawsuits go through. So it's really an interlocal.
Who says that?
Well, it's an entity that's formed. The city is a member. It's kind of coordinated through Ellen Orderbahn over in OMB. Jim Sherriff used to be the direct link when he was here, and he was actually on the board of that entity. So it's run by a board of directors.
Who are they?
They're elected by the member cities. Like I said, Jim he was the top guy for a while over there. So we have had representation within that entity.
We don't have anyone now.
I don't believe there's anyone now on the board, right?
The way they're structured, there's a limited number in the state senate, seniority, not as a member, but you're the lead staff person. So it'll be probably a number of years before we get a chance to get Jim was the chair last year.
Well, we are a member, but we don't have a member on the board of directors at this point. We are a member of that entity. Well, I think you just indicated.
We went through this. There's not all members have a seat, and it's based on the staff person's involvement and the seniority within the organization. It has nothing to do with size or anything. And the members amongst themselves open when a seat becomes open, they select the community to fill that.
It's
never been a council person. It's always been a city manager or an elected township supervisor.
And Southfield actually was a founding member of the MMRMA.
I didn't know any of
Right,
that.
we are a founding member of that.
Oh, I am the councilman.
Any other questions? All right, this will move to our January 20th.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's the Michigan Department of Transportation, a roadside maintenance update, Mr. Joan.
Yes, we have Lee Schultz, our acting engineer here. We've had a number of conversations with the Michigan Department of Transportation relative to the maintenance, roadside maintenance program for I-696 and the Telegraph Road area. And we're looking for some direction, but the representative from MDOT will share with, will introduce themselves and share with council what MDOT is proposing for the next, I want to say construction, for this construction season starting in 2015.
Okay, can you give us your name and position in
Certainly.
business?
Yes. My name is Sandy Montez, and I am the Oakland TSC manager at MDOT. And I have with me Ahmad Ismuda, the Oakland TSC maintenance engineer, and Jim Schultz. He's our region engineer of planning. And the three of us have been meeting with Lee and Brandy and Terry to talk about what improvements and enhancements we could make to the roadsides. The Michigan Department of Transportation has jurisdiction over the primary roads in the area, including the I route, so I-696, the M route, M1, and the US route, such as Telegraph US 24. And the area of our focus for this particular project has been what we call the mixing bowl. I think that's what you refer to it as well, which is that area where M10 and I-696 and Telegraph all come together. There's a lot of open space out there, and so we've been meeting to talk about some of the ideas that we have to kind of enhance the landscaping. And I don't know, Jim, if there's anything you want to further talk about the green initiatives that have kind of...
Yeah, we're going to talk about that as part of the agenda. I just want to talk a little bit about the material you have on the table. Brandy, I know, was involved in the SEMCOG report, so this is sort of a regional vision for green infrastructure. And then there's this, we obviously have copies of the slides you're going to see in a second. And then we're going to go over what these color exhibits are, too. And I know the last page is a list of all the people that have been involved in the discussions at the road commissions, Oakland County, Southfield, and obviously MDOT. But the brains behind the operation are a lot.
So Ahmad's going to walk us through the presentation, and if at any time you have questions, feel free to ask.
Okay. We're glad to have you with us.
Well, thank you, and thank you so much for inviting us. We really appreciate you making time on your agenda.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to be here and discuss this basically the mixing bowl. And just to give you where it is, it's pretty much large 10 or M10, and it's starting from Lawson and it extends to all the that road. That's the area we are really talking about. But before we do that, we thought maybe we should cover a few other related topics to give you guys.
Use the mic.
Okay. Is it better now?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. But before we do that, we thought we cover a few related topics that it gives you an overall view of how we can achieve this. And the first item is the current vegetation control process, and we will be talking about basically what MDOT is doing statewide, county-wide, and then we get specifically to the next one. The other item, we have the community partnership mowing agreement or contract. In order for any communities to perform maintenance in the state front line, they need to be entered into an agreement or contract with Michigan Department of Transportation. We will go over that. And the third one is the mixing bowl. We'll get into that more specifically. And item 4 and 5, Jim would cover that, and we go from there. And at the end, we welcome any question, and also we'd like to hear your feedback. The current vegetation control process that we have statewide, it's basically for freeway mowing. As you can see, we don't do that many cuts. It's primarily because MDOT, really when it comes into the vegetation, it's for more safety rather than to be manicured lawn. So we are limited to do 1 to 2 cuts per year for freeway. And we do also do 2 to 3 cycles of letter cut. For boulevard mowing, we've recently, since I say by 2008, we have entered a partnership with a number of communities, and that has improved the condition tremendously, including in Southfield. And right now, because of that partnership that we have, we're able to fund it for boulevard mowing. We used to be 6 or 8, has increased it to 12 to 14 cuts per year, and also additional cut normally is done by the communities. But also when it gets to the landscaping, the community typically has the ownership of it, and they are the one who maintain it. As far as this agreement or contracts with the community, it is called the State Frontline Maintenance Contract. with municipality contracts. It is typically a generic language. It's typically, lawyers, I don't think they like it so much because it's so generic, but that's why we added this letter of understanding. We're specifically going to what are our understanding of what we're going to do and what the community would do. It is a 5-year contract. It is, this year, it's renewed automatically every 5 years. In fact, we started the new 5 years just October 2014, and it will run, expires in September 30th, 2019. As part of this contract, it allows the communities to subcontract the work, and also MDOT would compensate for all incurred costs, including employee benefits and overhead. Typically, for a mowing contract, it's because it's subcontracted out, this item of employee benefits is not really covered, but we do have the schedule for paying for the overhead of the community that who are involved in this. In arterials, how many of them are right now in Oakland County involved in this? As you can see, 8 miles. The city of Southfield has been part of our program since 2008. They're doing 8 miles, and also, as you can see, Grand River, city of Farmington Hills has been with us since 2006. Northwestern Highway, again, city of Southfield is already part of the program. So is city of Farmington Hills. And there are a number of other areas that the communities are part of it. As you can see, Bloomfield Township it does telegraph for us, and they actually go beyond the township limit. They further go to the Pontiac, and they go down there to Bingham Farms next to Southfield. And also 10 miles, city of Oak Park is involved. In Woodward, we have Bloomfield Township again, Bloomfield Hills, Birmingham, Ferndale, and Pontiac. Also, we have a program for freeway interchange. It's maintained by the community as well too. And these are currently we have I-75 Big Beaver, I-75 Crooks, and these are the communities who are involved in them. I-75 Rochester Road, I-696 and Orchard Lake Road, I-96 Millway, and I-96 Beck Road. And these are the communities or the cities that currently have contract with us: Birmingham, Bloomfield Township, Farmington Hills, Farmington, Ferndale, Pleasant Ridge, Rochester, Road Commission for Oakland County, and City of Southfield. Now we get into the mixing bowl, and what we are doing right now currently is part of the, again, a statewide mowing contract. We do only 1 to 2 cuts of mowing and 2 cycles of rudder pickup per year for the, I say, entire flat and slope area. Really, a slope is minimal versus the flat area because it's such a big area. They're mostly flat. What we are proposing right now is more toward green. Is that we are saying instead of mowing the entire area, let's just mow 12 to 15 feet buffer strip 6 times a year instead of 2 we are talking about. But also, we know litter is an issue. Pick up the litter instead of we're doing 2 or 3. Make it 12, so it become more cleaner. And the other thing we're adding is add one application of selected broadleaf control the entire area. We know if we don't mow it, at least we don't want to have too many weeds go up there. This is basically the map. I think it's next to it. You also see it there. It shows the area we are talking about. It started again from Gloucester, go all the way to
and just in case you're wondering, when Ahmad's talking about the buffer areas that would get mowed, those are those sections right next to the shoulders. So obviously for safety reasons and for clear vision, you do have to have a certain area where everything is cut a little lower. So it sort of outlines the areas that we're talking about.
And next slide is we believe this proposal would have some benefit to it. It also would be cleaner, less litter because we're increasing the litter pickup. Would be less weeds because we're doing the application of weed control. Hopefully it looks cleaner and healthier. Improves erosion control. Less of mowing you do, the chances of less erosion you do. Environmentally, obviously, would be friendly, natural looking, and at the end, if things looks better, the customer are happier. and that's what we are hoping for. And this is the kind of example that we are saying is going to happen. This is a GM Tech Center which have gone toward green and just basically doing this buffer strip we are talking about, mowing and leave the grass, not so many weeds, but cleaner. And this is another shot of it that it shows that's the kind of plan, the vision we are looking to do. I think I'm pretty much done with mine, and I let Jim take a look at it.
So, one of the things you may ask is, where do we come up with these crazy ideas from? Because it's different. I'm sure everybody at their house is used to cutting the grass to 3 inches, and it looks like a golf course. One of the things we recognize, and I never get defensive, is we say the way we were cutting it twice a year, did it look good? I don't think anybody was happy that it looked great. We think this will be a better look. And then the other thing is, I happen to live with an environmental engineer that works for General Motors, as it turns out, but she was reminding me about GM's activity. So one of the things that she has on her work performance is that the GM facilities are all under this zero landfill, and they also embracing this wildlife at work certification. So what Ahmad and I were talking about, how do you take a freeway interchange and make it almost like a wildlife at work certification or an Audubon certification, but make it something special? So nationally, we haven't seen any state DOTs, go after this type of certification, but I think that's their thinking. In other words, instead of just having it, where people drive through an area and don't feel it's anything special, how do you make something unique and look at some of these opportunities? Ahmad already showed you the GM Tech Center. I happen to live near Somerset, and so when I was on the Troy DDA, I was thinking, like probably a lot of you, I want to, waterfalls and flowers and manicured, and they decided at the time, no, we're just going to do the buffer strip and let the rest grow wild, and there's actually a subdivision that abuts it, and it's been fine. And the Northwestern Highway is another example. This is one of the maps we had for all of Oakland County. It's in your package. It's a little distorted. But it shows some of the, what Ahmad was going through, the interchanges on 75. We didn't talk about this University Drive interchange that Auburn Hills is going to do, but we're trying to encourage the community to say, look, this is what MDOT does. Maybe you want to do it better. So we give everybody the same deal. It's not like we're treating any community different. Say, here's our basic deal. If you think you can do a better job, go for it. So that's what this map's indicating. And with that, I'll turn it back to Ahmad in case you have any more questions.
Yes, we do have some questions. Mr. Mayor.
Yes. In reference to the contracts, and the landscaping and everything, does the community pay you for that, or you pay us?
How the contract works, you already have a contract with us, City of Southfield has. It's in the process of to be renewed. And I think it may be in your agenda on the January 26th to sign that contract. Again, renew it for another 5 years. Once that contract is in place and signed, then you would have the opportunity to subcontract the work. There's 2 ways it can be done. Either we do it, subcontract the work, or the city would take the lead and do that, as it is right now. You're doing it on the Telegraph and Northwestern and what have you. Those are the city, basically goes under the city's contracting process.
And the city is paying for that?
No, the pay is, we pay, we establish a budget. As we mentioned, we pay this many number of cycles. Right now for boulevard mowing, we compensate for 12 to 14 times, but the city chooses to do 24 times cuts and also do the landscape. That's the part that the city compensates. They don't charge us. Nobody give each other the money. We said our budget for mowing for boulevard is 12, 14 times, but you like to do more than 12. You want to do 24. So that's the part that we just do it under the contractors that you have. You pay them directly to them, not to us, but it just goes in that.
Another question. Little. litter on the signs of the freeways and everything on the street side. Do you pay for that, or we do?
Depends on, if it's part of the contract, I believe the telegraph, if you're referring to telegraph, it was that we were compensating the contractor to do, it was weekly. I remember the telegraph was weekly, it was part of the contract that we did pay for that. But because it's weekly, the number was really nominal, it wasn't that costly, especially when you subcontract these work, because typically you get a better deal. That we agreed to compensate for the litter pickup, because when you look at the numbers, they're small. But most of the time, it is really a partnership between us and the community, and you are the biggest stakeholder of these, and we'd like to work with you guys, but like anybody else, we have funding issues, and there's so much we can do. And we know we have increased the level of service in these boulevards by this partnership, and it overall has worked really well. The number of communities, including City of Southfield.
Ms. Seymour?
Yes, I have noticed in the last, I guess, couple of years that mixing bowl site has not been as well kept and maintained as it had been in the previous years. And disappointed to see that, because for a long time it looked really great. I have a couple questions. Number one, when you mentioned Audubon, are you working with a group, Michigan Audubon, National Audubon, just standards that they have? Are you working with?
We're just starting to address that.
Okay.
So I wouldn't say we have anybody in particular in mind, other than, just like the golf courses are trying to be Audubon certified and use less pesticides, and we're trying to embrace all that.
Well, I am a long-time board member of Detroit Audubon Society. So I'd be happy to help in any way possible. I drive that mixing bowl site so many times and look at it, and it just seems to go, a little bit worse and a little bit worse, and I keep thinking, why aren't they doing something about it? Why has this happened? Now I know. I mean, it is cost, and I understand that, but it is such a beautiful site, and the potential is so great, and it wouldn't take much to make it.
Now, in your packet is actually something the City of Southfield put together, a concept drawing of how we envision it. So the first step is this difference in mowing. Your city staff has actually come up with a concept to reforest it, in effect, and put wildflowers. And we have to go after grants to make that happen. But the idea is, instead of just being a freeway interchange that people just drive through at 70 and 80 miles an hour, how do you make a special place?
It could be beautiful, and it could attract wildlife, and we've thought of that for years. We've talked about it, not necessarily all this council, but the people, Mary Carlock and some of the people that are.
Mary's the one that actually came up with the concept plan.
I believe it.
And then there's actually a trail that runs along the Rouge that goes through the interchange, and we're trying to say, how do we embrace that?
I know that. That's great. No, I'm delighted to hear that. You have no idea how happy I am to hear this. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Stiver?
I like what you're presenting and certainly support the buffer plan. I'd rather see more mowing right along the freeway than the twice a year hack it down approach. I noticed that on here Southfield Freeway between 8 and 9 Mile is not included, and it's particularly bad, the litter, when you where Southfield Freeway ends and it hits the lodge. It's your property or state highway property. There's a fence, and all this stuff blows over and gets caught.
Well, it turns out my office is actually adjacent.
Yeah,
but I think we're trying to look at, we concentrate on the mixing bowl, but the idea is that we need to also do it down at 9 and Southfield and then.
There's another spot that's really bad too, and that's when you come out of Detroit on the Lodge, and it's the Walls Freeway that exit to Northland.
Mm-hmm.
There's something with the wind vortex. It becomes a swirl of litter all the time. And it always bothers me because that's the first exit in Southfield. And I've had people say, well, this is my first impression of Southfield. I got off the lodge and there's all this stuff swirling around. So those are some areas I think.
Could maybe you address that for a minute, how many cycles of, really, that's mostly picked up by our curb sweeping contractor.
I also understand City of Southfield has own program that they come and pick up litter.
Well,
That in addition to what we do.
My understanding was that we couldn't, at least this was once the case, we couldn't go on the freeway to pick up stuff. We couldn't send crews on the freeway.
We have to have a contractor.
Unless you have the contract. Right.
Well, you have you're under maintenance contract with us.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of communication that you're out there so you could let people know that you're going to be there. As far as the Southfield Freeway goes, we could extend this to Southfield Freeway, which this whole area could be as one. You can say mixing boulevard extend it to Southfield.
But I think the other thing you do is you do the freeway sweeping, what, 6 times a year?
Yes,
Street sweeping.
in fact, if you sometimes you may have noticed if you pass 8 Mile entry into Wayne County, there's $2 hours. And we probably have the highest curb sweeping in the state in Oakland County right now. 6 times, and sometimes I have even done 7 times if there's an event or something that has come up. So we're trying the best we can do with the funding, the contracting, and what have you. If we can stretch the funding and we can do more, we're willing to do the same thing that we're coming in here. Let's say put all resources together, us and the city, and improve the condition as much as we can.
Another concern was trees were planted in the mixing bowl, and it was sort of, they were just put out there, and there was no support for a number of these trees died. I was glad to see the trees, but then they died, and then you have another issue with gossip.
I can probably take that question. Yes, those trees were planted as a mitigation for another project, and our resource person came up with that as a kind of an open area that she felt could take these trees. The way our contracts work, there's a 2-year requirement that a contractor water, cultivate, and maintain trees. After that period of time, if any trees have died, they have the decision whether to take a 50% deduction on the cost of the tree or they can replace the tree. More often than not, it's not worth it to the contractors, so a lot of times they'll just walk away from it and take the deduction. Unfortunately, this happens and I think it's a flaw in our construction contracts. They walk away from these trees, and then basically we're stuck with dead trees. And the only way eventually they may rot and fall down, but we don't put out another contract then to go out and remove these trees. And it's hard for trees to survive in the harsh environments on a freeway anyway, and then with just a 2-year pretty minimal amount of watering. It's something we've talked about a lot, about kind of improving that process. But I agree with you. If we spend a lot of money, and then half the time we get nothing.
And then, just so you know, in the concept drawing that we're thinking about, the idea was we're going to plant trees really dense. So let's say within a 4 or 5 foot radius, there'd be that density, with the expectation some are going to die. So it'd be like natural selection. But there'll be such a density of trees planted, you won't notice it. The way we planted these trees, they're so far apart, you really notice it. So, there's a whole different philosophy, recognizing trees are going to die, but we're going to plant a lot of them.
So the contractor then doesn't have to go back if it's a really dry spell?
Well, we set up, they do have to, the only way they get paid at the end of the 2-year period is if the tree has survived. If it's dead, then, like I said, they get a 50% deduction on the cost of the tree. So they have to make a financial decision. Is it cheaper for me to take my deduction or go out and replant a new tree? Well, like I said, more often than not, they end up just taking their deduction and walking away from them. And then we're kind of stuck with a whole bunch of dead trees. And it happens all over our system. It really is, like I said, is something our statewide people who set up our spec books are looking at, to see if there's a better way we can contract for trees and cultivation.
Good. Well, I appreciate that you're aware of that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes. Well, thank you very much for being here, and I'm here to raise a sore spot with me, and that is Telegraph Road between I-696 and our city limit. This is going now on 7 years, and the median still has not been put back together. And I remember many discussions, and money ran out, and all this, and I guess my question is, how do we proceed with the projects and programs and monitor them so that we preserve what we spend money for? In other words, that was an assessment district, and all the corporate people along Telegraph Road paid an assessment to maintain the irrigation system and everything on that median. And here 7 years later, and it's still not completed. But during the inspections, the irrigation was all cut off in the middle of the roads, and nothing was actually caught or anything done about it until now we're in a position where the city is short of money, and MDOT short of money, and you can only do with what you have. But it's really was a crime what happened to that median. That was a beautiful landscape median with irrigation system, and that project took a long time to get done. We had 11, 12 businesses that went out of business because they couldn't get to them, and we even looked at some of the topsoil that was brought in, and your specs call for a 2.5-inch stone in the topsoil. And you know, we delivered a couple of bags of that 2.5-inch stones to you, and that really isn't topsoil. So, and I don't want to criticize. What I want to do is to avoid that happening again. And you know that, but even under the bridge by Toys R Us, the easterly lane is all gone already. 9 Mile Road and Telegraph, there's a big hole in the where you pull off your to pull on 9 Mile Road. Is that 9 Mile Road?
Yeah, deceleration.
Yeah, but nobody seems to go and take care of the maintenance. And there was a picture on in the Detroit News showing the runway at our metro, and showing the same thing that you see everywhere. In every place that it is cut is where it breaks, and then they put down cold pad and cold pad and cold pad, and the concrete is not holding up. Is there anything that's happening where that concrete now is looked at to see about the quality of it when it's put down, when the asphalt when it's put down?
All right, that's.
I think we've had this good discussion.
Well, let me, you brought up a lot of different things, so let me just jump into the first, your 12-mile and Telegraph issue. No question that when we did that reconstruction, they wiped out most of that nice landscaping that was in there and did do an awful lot of damage to the irrigation system. And that was right around the time that I became the Oakland TSC manager. And one of the first things we did was recognize that it really looked bad out there, that it was our responsibility to do something about that. So I went to the Metro Region, to our region engineer, and asked if they could, using 100% state money, no federal money, because the feds washed their hands of that job due to all the problems on that job, and asked if we could get the money, 100% state money, to replace that irrigation system. And we worked very closely with Lee and the city, and all of that irrigation system has been replaced, and as far as I know, is up and working now. We went through a couple of dry summers without any irrigation there. No question that didn't help, even when they put down the grass. And I also agree with you that what was acceptable there, or what was brought in as topsoil, was not topsoil. It was really an inferior, and it really should not have been accepted. Unfortunately, the engineer who was the engineer of record on that job is no longer with MDOT. He's retired, he's with private industry. There's not much we can do other than we replaced all the irrigation, we did some landscaping, we reseeded it all. Now it's, there's some good plants in there, and I know Jim has offered some money to do some replanting. It's going to take a little bit of time. I mean, it would have taken a little bit of time anyway when you start with smaller plants, but we feel like the area is now on the right track. We've got the irrigation system in, and I know Mary, before she left, was working on getting it weeded. That was another part of the problem, is the area.
We had code enforcement going,
Yep.
3-foot high.
Yep. So there were a lot of issues. I think we've resolved most of the issues on there, and I really do think that going forward it is going to be much better through that corridor. We need to give it a little bit of time for the irrigation to start working and having an effect on the plants. So that's being said about that. Now the pavement itself, we did go through a period in the late 1999, 2000, where a lot of our concrete pavement deteriorated. There's been all sorts of research done by all the universities in the area to try to figure out what caused that to happen. Most of the theories go back to it wasn't a matter of poor inspection, it was a matter of loss of air in the concrete as it went through the pavers. And so you don't have the air void system that you should have in concrete. And so when the concrete freezes, there's no place for expansion, and it's caused it to break up. This has happened not only on our roads, but also City of Southfield roads. It's happened on county roads. There's a whole vintage of concrete, just the specifications were just inadequate, and so we've corrected those. And most of the concrete that MDOT has placed since that period of time is doing fabulously well. Our concrete sections are holding up now 15 years without repair, but we're still playing catch-up on trying to get some of that older vintage of concrete replaced. And then, when you resurface a road, in terms of what you're saying about how long you can expect it to last, generally on our concrete pavements we have 5-year warranties, and on our resurfacing projects we have a 2-year warranty. After that point, a contractor's off the hook. They're no longer required to come back and make any corrections. At that point, if there's any further deterioration, now it becomes a maintenance issue, and a mod contract telegraph with the Road Commission for Oakland County, and they take care of maintaining that. If you see something specific, feel free to call us, and we'll always have the county go out and do it. But at this time of year, the best you're going to be able to do, the asphalt plants aren't open, so really all we're sort of doing is cold patch until, we can go in and do more extensive types of repairs.
Do you know why they saw cut the concrete at least 30, 40 feet? In other words, like, what everybody says is you go through 2 or 3 winters and you get water, or you get different levels of concrete, how they rose and how they sat down, and so you get the effect of thump, 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 thump. When you look at Greenfield Road, teenage canvas, you get $1 million for it, and I don't know why they saw cut that if they don't intend to maintain it so that they don't allow water to seep in between it.
So you're saying, why don't they seal the joint?
Yeah, they put something in it, but it doesn't hold. And for example, 275, if you go around 6 miles, I mean, you go crazy, you got to stop and sit down a flat tire.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't
That's
understand
that bad vintage of concrete, and we already went in there and did an extensive, that section you're talking about on 275 was 1999, and we are actually getting ready to do an overlay project out there. Almost every single joint on that section failed, and again, that's that bad vintage of concrete where there wasn't enough air in the pavement, and so when the water would get into the joints, it would cause deterioration, and we've had to do a ton of patching.
So do they check out the plant itself to see
Oh,
if
yeah.
the mix is
Absolutely. Absolutely. Every plant that we use is certified. They have to produce test documents to show that they are testing. Our spec on concrete is now 37 pages, and there's so much testing that gets done on the concrete. One thing that you have to consider, too, in our area we use a tremendous amount of salt. Salt is an enemy of concrete, and but what choice do we have? I mean, when you have snow, people expect that they're gonna be able to drive on the roads, and salt is really the best tool we have.
Is the liquid inefficient?
You mean,
The chemical they put down,
it's just salt and water, it's brine.
is that all it is?
Yeah, that's all it is. We can't afford to do any, salt as the city probably knows, is already very expensive. We paid, what did we pay this year, about
$85.
60, I think we paid 61 a ton.
Well, actually, it depends, every municipality, every county
Yeah.
is different.
But the cost went
Actually,
way
Oakland
up.
County was more reasonable than other, around 55 or something. So
I
more
appreciate what you're dealing with, but it's, you know, these roads, guys, something's gotta happen so they can last a little bit longer. We'll never, we just spent a $99 million on it, and, you know, it's only 99 miles. You look at it.
It's just
I'm gonna ask for another one in 2 years.
Because when there is high in the material, too much construction, expansion, or what have you, it's just ruining our roadway. Lots of
Well,
movement.
maintenance, you got a lot to do with it.
It is, and again, there's even like these chemicals doesn't help, but we have to do them because the safety of the public comes first. We know it's gonna harm us. We do excessive amount of liquid these days, but these liquids have calcium chloride in it, have magnesium chloride in it. All these things are not friendly to concrete. So it does, in some extent, these are part of the contributing factors of we are seeing our roads living longer.
We got a lot of work to do, but thank you for being here, appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Frazier.
Yes, I also want to thank you for being here and sharing with us what your plans are. I have a few questions. One is, when you talk about mowing back from the shoulder of the road, how far back do you mow?
We talked about the buffer, 15 feet.
15 feet?
Wall, 15 feet, that's what we were talking about.
Okay, because especially in the fall, after the growing season is over, that starts getting dry, that it needs to be mowed back because, you know, somebody throws a cigarette out or somebody may cause a grass fire along the edge of the road. So, second question is, and you partially answered when you talked about what you're going to do with the Telegraph Road, the median, where it was watered before, and now it's you're repairing it. But it seems if the further north you go on Telegraph Road, the better the medians look. Can you help me with that?
Well, and Mad oversees those contracts, but as he had mentioned, we contract with the different agencies along there, and everybody gets compensated for the base service that we would have provided. If communities such as Birmingham, Bloomfield Hills want to do more than that, they're paying for that at their own cost.
Okay.
So that is the big difference, and I know they do far more than.
We just talked about it, this area looks beautiful before, as a result of construction. I'm very hopeful, once the city takes over, you're gonna have the same look. It's just a matter of time. It has gone through the construction, so many things has been dug up, and the material they used was not necessarily the best, the topsoils or what have you, even the seeds they applied that had weeds in it or what have you. But I think once the cycle of construction is over and the city will take over this area, it should look like what it was before.
Now, do you know if those medians on the northern end are sprinkled? Do they? Are they irrigated?
Isolated areas, selected areas, Bloomfield Township and Bloomfield Hills, they're very aggressive in terms of maintaining their landscaping in the median. The same thing if you drive on Woodward, you see it in Birmingham is the same way. These communities, as part of their community plans or what have you, they do pay a lot of attention to they do more work than it's partly because we do the same. We just have the same exact contract that we have in the city of Southfield than we have in Bloomfield Hills or Bloomfield Township. It is really they taking on themselves that they do these extra work.
Okay. The reason I say that is the piece that we were discussing about that was irrigated will look better.
It does, no question. Irrigation is very important, and they do have irrigation areas Bloomfield Township has. Not everywhere, but certain areas, and we see the grass looks much nicer.
And the piece between 8 Mile and the 12-mile area that sometimes doesn't always look as
Well, the area from about 8 to up to about 10, that never had irrigation, and it still doesn't. So it is, that area is susceptible to the weather conditions, and as you probably have noticed, under really dry summers without much rainwater, it mostly turns brown. And there's sections up in Bloomfield that are the same way. They don't water everything. So, you know, it just, I mean, this past summer, we had a very, very wet summer, and nothing turned brown on us. But in other summers, we've had almost drought-like conditions. Unfortunately, you know, it's very expensive to irrigate all of those medians, and so a lot of communities simply don't. MDOT as a policy, we do not do any watering or irrigation of any of our roadways. We simply don't have the funds.
But I also know some communities, in addition to watering, they have a weed control program as part of mowing. They have feeding it, and just like anything else, you take care of the plants, they do better. So they do have those programs in addition to the mowing. But again, we are not doing it, but it's them that they support that and look for green.
On the new 96 rebuild, I noticed that all of the trees have been wrapped with burlap to protect them from the winter. Is that something new? Is that a new plan, or
You
how
know,
did that?
I'm guessing that is new. I haven't seen that in the past, and I know that they did do some things, some new and innovative. They've been working much more closely with our roadside management people, or I should say our roadside management people, staff up in Lansing have been working more closely with our construction folks, recognizing that, you know, truthfully, MDOT is in the road and bridge business. We're not experts at landscaping. We now have, you know, people that are expert in that, and my guess is that they probably worked with them and set a specification in that they had to do that, because that one would still be within that 2-year cultivation period. So none of us were involved in that
But it might be
project.
the contractor may have taken the initiative.
Well, and it's possible too, to save his investment.
Risk.
Right.
Because that's got to be real expensive, because they've got to go out in the spring and take them off. And there's a ton of trees.
We can find the answer to that. I really don't know. I haven't seen that as a standard practice.
Yeah. That's the first time I've ever seen it.
Right.
And I just wondered if that was something new in your...
Very possible, or like Jim said, it's possible the contractor made a financial decision.
Protecting their own
and
investment.
Protect their investment. Not sure, we can find that out.
Okay, the last item I want to talk about is, it's a suggestion. But, I know I'm expending breath that probably will never see results, but I think concrete highways are safer than asphalt highways, and I'll tell you why. On a moonless night when it's raining out, your headlights on your car are almost absorbed right in front of the car. You just can't see down the road.
Yeah.
And on a concrete highway, because it's lighter, the lights bounce off and you can see further down the road. I think it's a safety issue myself, and I don't know how you weave that into the formula for how much it costs to put a highway in and the safety factor. But
it's one of many, many, many factors. I can't say in my experience I've seen that being the deciding factor, because there's so many other factors. But I would agree with you. That's my own personal experience, that on a wet
moonless night.
Yeah, moonless night where it's hard to see. It can be harder to see on an asphalt road.
Yes.
There's a sheen that just makes it where you can almost not see the joint lines, whereas you're right, concrete, a little better in those conditions to be able to.
Yeah, I know when the petroleum was very expensive, it may have made some sense to put in concrete, but now that it's so inexpensive in the spring.
Well, and we also have to keep both industries
of course.
happy. We get a lot of pressure from both. I mean, there's some people who would say that we should be building all of our roads out of asphalt because it's the easy thing to do. You don't have to cut patches. You can just mill it and resurface it every so many years, and it's lower maintenance long term. So, you know, there's always two sides in that argument. So.
Okay.
But I do agree with what you're saying.
Thank you. That's it.
Yes, excuse me. I agree with everything that's been said by all our council people. We've all observed the same thing, and I have to agree with that. I am particularly interested in the mixing bowl because when it started out, you could see the potential. It's a beautiful location. And then little by little, certain things were done that maybe shouldn't have been done. I would say, as things grew up and things got brown, and there just seemed to be a lack of attention. It's a beautiful site, and it should be really cared for. A lot of wildlife could use it. I know we've talked about that off and on. I would like to see more of that attempt made. I mentioned Detroit Audubon. I think they're the oldest Audubon in the society, and it's not in Detroit, it's Greater Detroit. And if you ever want to talk to them, contact me, and I'll put you in touch with them, because I know they'd be happy to participate in any way any way that they can help you. Okay. Seriously. But thank you for coming. This has really been very worthwhile. I appreciate it very much.
Our pleasure.
Okay, I've got a few questions.
Sure.
As it relates to the mixing bowl and the proposal that you're suggesting, will that include the litter being picked up outside of the buffer zones, or is it just restricted to the
Yeah, that's a good question. Typically, we don't go that far, and normally litter doesn't shoot up that far. It's mostly people, trucks, and what have you. I even doubt that people necessarily drop this litter. So they're mostly extended to the ditch line, and it stays there. That's where we do the cleanup. We don't typically go that big area. We haven't done litter pickup that far, as I recall. But I think we leave it open if there is something that needs to be done. We have two types of litter. One we call them junking. There's some big items or what have you left that we have the county forces to go pick them up. And the litter is typically papers and those stuff that we're talking about. It's part of where they mow, they pick them up. So at this point, we are limiting to that buffer area that we're talking, but we can leave it open if there is. It needs to be addressing some litter issue comes up in the contract, we can address it later on, if it does become a problem. As of now, I don't think we do it, but we keep it in the radar.
All right. I'm really delighted to know that it's the same contract that's being used for Southfield as well as all the other cities. I guess I always thought it was different, but
It's the exact same contract, just identical.
But other communities have put more dollars into
They just, their own
beautification.
dollars, exactly, that's what it is.
And that's really what we're gonna have to do, is be aggressive, take a real aggressive approach in putting more dollars in terms
We
of
always just felt they were
beautification.
getting more special.
Yeah, we did. But I have a question, not related to, the contract, but it has to do with a safety issue that I've noticed in the mixing bowl. So let me tell you, you're headed south on Telegraph, and you're taking the exit to get onto Northwestern Highway. And there's some white barriers to prevent you from going over the 696 west. I've noticed several cars still crossing the lanes to get onto 696 west. What can be done, and I don't know if you guys could relay the message or help us out, if there could be more of those barriers added.
Repeat again to me. I want to make sure I exactly understand.
Okay, so you're on Telegraph Road, heading south.
Heading south.
Okay, 12 miles.
Okay.
And you're going on to the Northwestern Highway
Okay.
ramp.
Oh,
Yes.
okay, where you have to make the decision whether you go on to Northwestern or go on to,
Okay, so people get on that Northwestern Highway ramp,
Yep.
but they'll still
Okay,
decide to
now I
cross
know what you're
over,
talking about. Okay.
4 or 5 lanes of traffic going up to, what can be done to either extend the barriers, or what can you do? It's a safety issue.
Yeah, we can, we have several options that we can explore. We have, safety engineers. I'll take that back to our folks and see if they may have studied that in the past, I'm not sure, but I'll take it back and see if there's anything that they can do. We can do a safety audit through there and see.
Okay.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I do know that phenomenon does exist. There may be things we can do to extend that.
All right, Council, before us, we have a proposed mowing service from MDOT. So the current schedule is the 1 to 2 truck of mowing and 2 cycles of third pickup. Or if we want to introduce enter a new contract with MDOT with the flat area being mowed 6 times a year and the most sloped area 2 times a year. Litter pickup 12 times a year, and then 1 application of a weed control. So that's what's on the table at this time. And we need a consensus at this point. So why don't I just go around the table and you just say, yes, you're interested in entering the contract, the new proposed mowing contract, or you would like to leave it the same.
Where did you see that, Melanie?
That's on page 3 of the handout, at the bottom, the PowerPoint presentation. Right.
Okay.
Page 3, last slide.
And is that something like the same workflow?
Apparently I didn't get the PowerPoint.
Is there any cost difference? No.
Well, a couple things I want to point out. One, entering into the contract, I understand that the current contract is up, and that's just a generic contract to say that we will, work, we'll be able to have a financial arrangement. So regardless of which way you decide to go, with keep things the way they are or do the new type of mowing, you're still going to want to renew that contract. Then the decision is, do you want to mow all of these areas twice a year like we've been doing, or do you want to simply mow the buffer areas and start letting the rest of these bigger areas go natural? So that's really kind of the and you may want to think about that. I don't know that we need a decision on that immediately.
Let me elaborate on that. As far as what we are proposing is this is what we propose once we do in the letter of understanding as part of the big contract. We would compensate you for what we propose. If you do like to add to that, would in addition, like Boulevard, you're saying maybe I want to have 12 cars in that area, or I want to increase 24 that have come. That's where you can come in. This is what, just like we mentioned about the Boulevard, we proposed, or we have proposed to communities that we pay for 12 cuts, and then what they do more. This is what we're proposing, and if you want to take it as it is, and I think there's 2 ways to look at it. We have to see the contracting process for the city, because it has to go through contracting. Right now, we do have a contract, a new contract that we are doing for mowing is coming up. We could cover it under our new mowing contract, so the city would not be involved. It's just a matter of bringing it to your attention to see would you like this proposal and go from there. Either we can handle it completely, or we can say as like partnership with the Boulevard that you want to take over. I'd rather you guys to be engaged part of it than we just do it our own, which we can do it, by the way. We have a contract coming up. I can just say, you accept this proposal. You don't have to do anything. I just put it under my contract to do it. Or we say, take it out of your contract. The city would have a contract, advertise a contract as part of the Boulevard, and add this area to it, and we do it all once.
I think with that said, we need to refer it to the administration and
Yeah,
and staff and move forward from there.
Yeah, Fred, the proposal that they have, I'd like to know what they have presently and how effective is it. In other words, to see whether or not it benefits the city to go somewhere, do something else other than what we're doing. And so, it's hard when you don't know if it's satisfactory now, can we get enough mowing under their contract, and then we do in addition to that, or are we satisfied with the way it is, and we just keep it?
Okay.
I mean, I think, because we're really coming off the wall, because I don't know what they're proposing as far as how many cuts, how does it look after you do that many cuts a season? And, they do, these contractors use that at their dump site too,
Yeah.
Fixing bowl, you see all the garbage over there, stones and cement and
I know there's
They dump over there and that.
there's construction,
Yeah.
and hopefully if we
No,
take
we should have
over,
no trespassing or something up there because it's really a dumping pit, really.
Looks like a permanent staging area.
Yeah, yeah.
to some extent, I agree with you, there's sometimes when construction job goes in, they use it as staging.
Why don't you come with a recommendation?
We'll complete a review of our grass cutting contracts with MDOT. We already augment telegraph. We've heard some of the issues regarding the maintenance. Regarding the mixing bowl, I'm not hearing any serious objections to exploring this new concept, so we'll pursue that as well.
And if you need to see, like, obviously not now, but if you want to see, like, what the GM Tech Center is doing, or you can certainly drive around Somerset Mall and see if, get a better idea of what it looks like if you go to this new approach.
Take a look, yep.
Okay, so this will be very good. Thank you, Jim.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks a lot, Christina.
Good evening, Council.
Good evening.
As you may be aware, you authorized the Planning Department to begin the 5-year master plan update last year. And Phase 1 included an extensive inventory and analysis of existing land uses. Our staff went out and actually either windshield survey or by various means every property within the city to establish what the existing land use pattern was. We also updated the existing information based on rezonings over the last 5 years, and we got input from all of the departments within the city as to what their needs and wants are with regard to long-term planning. We're about to begin Phase 2, which is the public input session. 5 years ago, when the plan was last adopted, the traditional method of mailing out questionnaires to citizens resulted in less than 300 responses out of 78,000 residents and 175,000 businesses. We got under 300 total responses. Today, with social media technology, we would like to augment our traditional public input. We continue to plan on meeting with neighborhood groups and organizations and do the old-fashioned dog and pony show. But we'd like to try to increase ownership over the master plan process with the residents and businesses, and we're proposing utilizing this Mind Mixer as a social media platform to engage more residents and businesses. And our goal is to exponentially increase the amount of people that participate in the master plan process. So with a target of no less than 3 to 5%, will be several thousand people that are engaged. Ms. Mullally from our office is going to give a brief overview of this platform, and then we'd like to be available to answer any questions that the council may have. Now, Mind Mixer was developed by planners who have worked with a number of communities on this for a long time. There have been over 900 organizations, not-for-profits, municipalities, regional agencies that have utilized this over the last several years, and over 2 million people have responded. So they have a good success rate of engaging the public. And part of this presentation will show that the old-fashioned way of having a public notice in the paper and setting up a meeting and getting 2 or 3 people to show up is not as convenient for many busy people today, and this will allow you to submit questions and answers at your convenience 24/7. And it helps to update the demographics on a real-time basis as we go throughout the process. So with that, I'm going to turn over Ms. Mullally, our senior planner. She's going to do a brief overview, and then both of us will be happy to answer any questions the council may have.
Thank you. Good evening, council and council president and mayor. Try to get this over with. So as Terry and yes, please stop me if you can't hear or if I'm speaking too fast. So Terry. It's period stated, I'm sorry?
You have a soft voice.
Oh, I'll try to speak up. As Carrie stated, Mind Mixer is a company. It was started by a group of planners. They're currently based out of Kansas City, Missouri. And what they've done is developed a tool. It's a website-based social media platform. It has an interface that's very similar in appearance. It's very similar to Facebook. And they're using this tool to collect public input. And over the last couple months, what we've done is we have been developing our customized Mind Mixer site to incorporate Southfield's interests specifically. And what we'll be doing is receiving input over the next several months based on a variety of topics. And we'll be using all the data that is received to, we'll be able to take that data and quantify it, analyze it, and then use it for our master plan update and formulate recommendations based on all that information that we'll be collecting. So Mind Mixer has actually developed, it's a very short, under 1 minute video that kind of goes over the benefits to us as an organization and why it's a useful tool. So I'm going to show you that quickly.
Attending a public meeting requires traveling to a specific location at a specific time. Sitting in a town hall or gymnasium for a few hours can be pretty exhausting, inconvenient, and unproductive. The same people show up, the same voices are heard, which leads to the same recycled ideas. Mind Mixer enables community collaboration to happen online. The Mind Mixer team works with community leaders to identify topics and achievable outcomes unique to your community. Ideas relating to these topics are submitted by citizens, refined, and voted on. The online format allows people to participate anytime and from anywhere. Community planners reach a wider demographic, and ideas are judged on their merit, not by influence of the submitter. Mind Mixer, idea collaboration for better communities.
So just a little brief video there, and we're going to actually jump right to the Mind Mixer website. And what the URL is going to be is sustainablesouthfield.mindmixer.com. So, and of course, our site hasn't gone live yet, but this will be what people will be able to view when they visit the site. So most likely they will be jumping right to the About section, so they can kind of see what's the whole rationale behind this. So this kind of goes over the reasoning, the logic behind Sustainable Southfield and why we call it Sustainable Southfield.
Yeah, and if I could just jump in, traditionally the master plan has just been focused on land use. And today's sustainability includes economic sustainability, social sustainability, and environmental sustainability. So it's a much more holistic approach to master planning, and includes everything from quality of life and healthy living activities, all those things that tie into the master plan to help guide the council when you're making rezoning and future land use decisions. So it's a much more holistic approach to traditional land use planning.
So as participants scroll down, they'll be able to see our tentative schedule of topics, in which I'll blow this up a little bit later so we can look at it in detail. Our master plan draft cover, and some other resources that we also have available on our website, but just for ease of the participants, if they want to refer to any of these documents as they're participating, they can do that. So, okay. Another key piece of this is, as participants are becoming involved and are spending their time to, formulate answers and add information to our site, they're obviously going to want to know that somebody here on our end is listening, and that their ideas and things aren't floating out into space. So we've got here you as the elected officials, and we're providing a link to our city website so that everybody can see you all, and if they want to email you directly, this will be a tool for them to be able to do so. Back. And then we have the Planning Commission representation here. And then a little further, we've got planning staff, and we'll be working with community relations and also business development. So, and, you know, a city staff will be, you know, monitoring the site on a daily basis and, you know, making the bulk of the responses back and forth, and that's how that'll work. All right, what is Mind Mixer? So this is information, obviously, for the participant, and this is just another very short video, but this is geared towards the participant and to let them know what they're going to get out of it as they spend their time on the site.
Being alive means you're part of something. A neighborhood, the school, the community, the world. How do you know? Well, you contribute ideas. You're acknowledged. Your voice is joined by others, and the ideas improve. Then someone takes action, and you see change. Well, that's what happens here. Here, we bring the outside in, encourage dialogue, listen to your ideas, combine them with others, and then share the actions being taken. So, you can feel alive, a part of something. Here, we solve problems, create solutions, and make things better together.
So just a nice little video there. How it works, and this is kind of, this is where we get into the bulk of kind of the meat and potatoes of the site. Topics. So again, we're going to keep this tentative schedule of topics at the top through the duration so people can see, and there will be a way that they can blow up that photo, but again, we'll look at that in a couple minutes. But our first topic is going to be vision. So the first three questions that we're going to have, what are the most important issues facing our community? Now, this is a multiple choice type of question, and the participants can choose up to 3 topics. Now, this question was actually taken verbatim from a question that we sent out 5 years ago. So we'll be able to compare, and the answers are going to be the same too. So we'll be able to compare apples to apples exactly, you know, how much 5 years has changed the answers. And our second is, how can we create a more connected Southfield? What barriers are there to connecting our communities, different neighborhoods, et cetera? So this is an open-ended style of question, so they will be limited to characters, but it's you know, we're not leading them down any path. They tell us their ideas. And the third, this is another open-ended style of question, but what is sustainability? When you hear that, what does that mean to you?
If I could add, there's about 20 to 25 topics, and there's a library of hundreds and hundreds of questions that we pull from. These questions have all been vetted over the 900 communities, and as you know, there's a science on how you ask the question and how you get the answer so it's not biased. And we can substitute names, for example, or we could use our own questions. So we've chosen to review the previous master plan and use some of those questions here. But there's multiple ways of asking the question, as Sarah will go through, is the multiple choice answer, the open-ended answer, there's a photo share answer, and then there's a pin on a map. So we're having multiple ways of expressing, you know, citizens and businesses' concerns by asking them in this manner, as opposed to the old-fashioned fill out a survey.
Mm-hmm. So, yes, as Terry was stating, well, okay, now these couple questions at the bottom, these are going to remain static. These aren't related to the vision topic, but are just kind of an overall, these are 2 overall questions that will remain on the site during the duration. So, how can we make Southfield a 21st century city? And this is another open-ended question. And then finally, what's your favorite thing about Southfield? And this, as Terry stated, this is a photo share type of question, and kind of stemming from Michael's, with his calendar, he did the same type of thing, that they'll have a chance to possibly have their photo displayed somewhere in the master plan. So they can, you know, upload their own photo if they see something. I mean, obviously, we wouldn't use somebody else's photo for the master plan, but if they see something that, you know, depicts what their favorite places that they find online, they can do that as well. It's just another way to express and get people talking and get people involved, and photos, you know, evoke feelings from people, and if they get them wanting to be more involved. So, and go up to the top.
So the topical questions will just rotate every 1 to 2 weeks to keep people engaged. And that timeline that Sierra showed allows people to know what the next couple questions are. And we've been instructed to keep it to 3 to 5 questions per topic, and then keep the topics rotating every 1 to 2 weeks. And that's how we've kind of laid this out over a 20-week or a 5-month period.
Okay, so we went over the topic portion of the website. This is activity. This is very similar to, you know, if you use Facebook at all, there's a kind of a feed, your own feed. You'd be able to click on, you know, your user profile and kind of keep track of what you've done on the site. And you can also click on somebody else's user profile and see what input that they've made to the site as well. So I've kind of created some dummy questions for future weeks, but just to kind of show you my activity. Okay, providing neighborhood event amenities. This is a question we'll have a little bit further down the road, but what types of businesses would you like to see in Southfield? I'd like to see a brew pub. I think that would be great for, you know, LTU students, and I have a family. We would come back to Southfield and come to the brew pub for dinner, you know, on weekends or whatever. And this is another example of the photo share, the Jewels of Southfield, and I chose the photo from the Southfield Flower Day to illustrate what one thing I like about Southfield, one of many. So, and people can see, they can comment on, see, I uploaded this photo, and people will have the opportunity to comment on that photo, you know, whether they like it or, you know, just kind of dovetail onto what somebody else may have uploaded. And then about, we already went to that page. They also have a very good frequently asked questions section and help section, so if anybody kind of gets lost, don't know what to do next, they'll be able to check those areas and find what to do next.
And I think on the home page, there's a translator portion, so if someone doesn't speak the best English, they can get this translated into their language that's more comfortable. Again, we want to try to engage more people in the master plan process. People will actually, at this point, we're going to have kind of a virtual point system for participants. The more that they're involved in the process, the more that they share and do on the site, they'll be assigned a virtual point system. Right now, it's just going to be virtual. Later on, we're hoping to maybe translate those points into something like a discount for a city event or admission, or discount for maybe you know, an area restaurant, something along those lines. That's something we're working with community relations and business development on. So with that, let's go back to. Okay, so we kind of went over the different types of questions, the multiple choice, the open-ended, the photo share, and then the last type that Terry was alluding to is this mapping type of question. So there will actually be the ability for participants, if, you know, with that photo or with the Jewel of Southfield question, if you have something, an event or a location that you love in Southfield, it's just a different way of asking the question. Participants can open up that question. They can add pins to a map. Carpenter Lake would be an example that someone might pin as a favorite place in the city.
And again, it could be a location, it could be an event, whatever they choose. And people can make comments on pins that have already been placed. They can like those pins, they can make comments, or they can add their own pins. And here's the tentative schedule of topics that were shown at the About, on the top of the About page and on top of the Topics pages. So you'll be able to kind of see this a little bit better. So we have questions formulated for the first 4 topics. So vision, economic development, trails, and arts and culture. So we're all ready to go with those, and as Terry stated, we're going to have 3 to 5 questions per topic, and as suggested by the Mind Mixer folks. and then those 2 general questions will remain on the site. So we'll just continuously, they've suggested that we want to make our information fresh, and we're going to want to keep rotating it because we want to maintain that interest, just, not just for the first couple weeks or so that it's launched. And this is just a list of some other organizations within the state of Michigan that have utilized MindMixer, and these are all active websites. So the Grand Rapids Laker Line Study, which is looking at transportation between downtown Grand Rapids and the Grand Valley State Campus, Calvin College Master Plan, Northwest Michigan Council of Governments in Heartland, Michigan. And there's also the state of Michigan is using this for their employees to be able to give input, but it's not obviously open to people looking at it. But the state of Michigan is utilizing MindMixer as well. So we've got some key dates here. Last month we brought this to Planning Commission and City Center Advisory Board for their preliminary input. We had a pre-launch conference call with MindMixer. We had the managers meeting last week, and today obviously study session. We have a tentative launch date of the 22nd, and hoping to bring it again to council on the 26th for some cable coverage. In terms of our launch, we are coordinating with community relations and business development, and Michael's prepared a press release for us, and we're obviously going to be utilizing the city's social media accounts, Twitter and Facebook, newspaper articles, our workshops, email lists, and we've developed some marketing materials as well that we'll be handing out and giving to the various city departments to hand out at their events as well.
So we've been told that Community Relations has somewhere in the 4,000 to 5,000 range of Facebook people registered. Parks and Rec has another several thousand. And so that'll give us immediate access to several thousand people, as well as some of our other traditional methods of getting the word out.
Yeah, so we, like I said, we've developed these marketing materials in-house, and we'll be handing out the postcards with the URL, the sustainablesouthfield.mindmixer.com, and flyers, posters, and we're just hoping to really get the word out. It's very important for...
So during the period, we hope to have a poster in each of the main lobbies and have some of the main counters that have a lot of people going through them have these cards available so they have access to the website, as well as working with cable and our other media outlets to get the word out. And once people register on there, then we can do a distribution list saying, you got one more week to vote on this topic, and then as of February 1st, another topic's going to be launched. And we'll hopefully just keep building that list as we go through the 5 months. At the end of the 5 months, then we'll take that information, filter it, and then start bringing it back to council for discussion. But then we'll have a built-in audience, for the eventual adoption later this year.
Yes, we do have a few questions.
Yeah, Jerry,
Yes.
a couple of years ago, you did something similar with meeting with different groups of people, asking what they liked about Southfield. I don't know what you
Yeah, it
called
was
it.
the SWOT analysis.
The what?
It was a SWOT analysis,
SWOT.
strengths, weaknesses, opportunities,
Yeah,
and threats.
but very similar to this.
Yes.
This is very interesting. I think I like the idea that we can get something concrete from people, and not just, as we did before, just you listen, you taped it, but you didn't have, it wasn't maybe as useful as this, but it was very similar what you did. And I do want to see community relations involved, because they have so many outlets. I would like to have a copy of this presentation, even though you're going to be changing the questions in the future. I'd like to have a printed copy.
We can do that, and Michael Mannion is one of the administrator managers that has access to this on a daily basis, and has been working with us over the last 2 to 3 months to develop this template. Again, remember, this is not to replace some of the traditional methods. We sent out letters to many of the major homeowners associations, and we're still willing to come to their quarterly meetings and do a presentation the traditional way, but this is to augment and hopefully to encourage more involvement.
And I think it's a good idea. I didn't think it would take the place, I would not, you know, I would hope not. You guys take
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate, this is not to substitute, but to augment.
And I think it's a good idea, like what these people have done. I would like a copy of this because it would help me, you know, keep it fresh in my mind and look up things. I don't need the current questions, or I don't need that sort of thing, but I think I'm glad to see it in some form that people can respond to.
And those cards we hope to make up several hundred, if not more, and then you can have a stack, and as you're going out, you can hand them out, and all the departments would be encouraged to distribute them at their counters.
Right, yeah, that's a good idea. So I do want a copy of this print out, though. Thank you.
Mr. Lane.
Okay. I have a series of books home. It says, it gives you a whole book in reasons for dummies. Okay? And you're very close to this plan, psychologically or anyway. When you tell me the question is all about this and getting names, you sent out 70,000 cards and you got 300 names back from the public. What do you think you'll get back on this? And what are the costs? What's the cost of this?
Well, I could tell you that traditionally it's $3,500 for a 6-month subscription to this.
Why?
And we were able to negotiate a year for $3,500. The last time when the city engaged consultants, I believe it was in around $170,000 to $200,000 range. And right now, this is the only amount, other than some reproduction costs, that we think that we're going to be able to do this update plan in-house, working with all the other departments, and we think this is a very reasonable cost to doing this. And the goal is to get 3 to 5% of the total population. That would give us around 1,500 to 2,500, and I'm cautiously optimistic we're going to get even more responses than that. But using the old-fashioned method, we had just under 300. Utilizing this, we're hoping to get around 2,000, which is statistically accurate for polling purposes, for all different size populations. So if we can get close to 2,000, we'll be statistically accurate.
Okay. The more I say dummies, the more dummies I see. This is all psychological. You will not get these names. The people don't give a care about your master plan or anything. It's just a couple of developers who will care. We had the master plan years ago, and it cost us $200,000, and you paid the guy immediately $200,000, and I said you could have gone to the library and make the plan for nothing. Okay? This is silly. This seems to me to be a simplex proposition from these guys who are putting this out to us, this company. I don't see it. I have vision. I imagine the council, when you come with a master plan, they also have a vision of what you want to be done. That's sufficient. We don't have to spend any more money being told, giving silly questions about a master plan that we're going to work on. I would go for it. I feel they're making a fool of me, because I understand every master plan you have, and you come up with either I ridicule it or I don't. I don't need this to make my mind up about the master plan that you deliver to us, whether it's good or bad. And that's a waste of money. Waste of time. Months and months and months. I vote against it.
Is that it, Mr. Lane?
Well, I can go more, but no.
All right, Mr. Constable.
Yeah, it's a interesting exercise. What are you looking to get from this exercise?
Well, ultimately, it's coming back to the council, and the council will make an
What will
adoption.
be coming back to them?
A draft plan.
You know?
However, let's say, for example, we get 500, 700 responses that they would like to bring, I'll just use the fireworks back.
Yeah.
Because everywhere I go, people talk about the fireworks. We don't have the money today, and there was a reason we had to stop it. But wouldn't the council want to know that that was a priority for the community, that we could then focus on going and finding the money for? It's opportunities like that. Maybe there's support for additional things in our parks, or maybe there's support for more sidewalks or trails. Maybe economic development, as Sarah had pointed out. I think if the council knew that you had a strong response for creating a brew pub, not that the business developers and others wouldn't go after that, but that might help the council as they review rezonings or consider tax abatements or whatever it is, that you had some support from the community, that the community was behind certain topics or areas. So that's what we're really trying to get out of it. And we don't know, and the nice thing that I like is the photo share, the flexibility of thinking outside of the box. There might be some things that come up that we aren't even thinking about, or if nothing else, there's that confidence that some of the ideas that the council supports is supported by the community. And you can statistically, hopefully it's statistically accurate, but you can with good faith know that you have support from a majority of the community for certain items. And we have to filter this, and then ultimately the council has to adopt it. But I would think that as you go through this process with us, that if we had good support for certain ideas, those are the things that have kind of raised to the top.
Well, I know there's value to it, but when I think about a master plan, a plan occurs over a period of time. And for several years, you know, we have kind of tried to define what Southfield is. And for example, there's a survey of town center, and the survey came back indicating what kind of services the employees would like, what the CEOs like, and what the residents like, and you get a feel for it. And then you get the professional planner in who studies way down here 20 years from now what your city's going to look like, and he heads in that direction. And I guess there's the expertise that a planner have in going into a larger, I guess, trying to get a larger results of what everybody wants. In other words, when you hear about a young man is not going to buy a car because he's going to be playing with his iPad and all that stuff. Well, that's somebody's idea of what's in the future. When we did a plan for town center of what they wanted, it just stays on the shelf, and there was no oomph to make it happen, I guess. Meantime, the times change, and what we were talking about then doesn't fit today. And I would just hope that this exercise would give us an overall of what cities are going to look like, in particular how Southfield fits into that puzzle. Because, you know, I mean, I think it's, I mean, every day, I mean, you think about just the iPad itself, you know, what is it, 5 years ago it didn't exist, 6 years ago it didn't exist. Things are moving so fast, and I'm not criticizing this. This is a great exercise, and I applaud you for going into it. I'm just saying is that, you know, when I sit here for a period of short time in the history of the city, but it started out to be it didn't get there. Or it goes in that slump, the outside force, the economy or something changes the way it's going. And so, for example, the city center plan never got off the ground. And the individual who was the developer, the money man, the banks or whoever, didn't loan money for the kinds of projects that were asked to go into there. And so it stops. I mean, and so, is this exercise to get someplace sooner, quicker, or today, and then somewhere down the line you're going to have what the city is going to look like 20, 30, 50 years from now?
Well,
You
the
know,
framework is,
you're a planner. And,
right, 5-year
and, you know,
plan and longer.
You know, a house isn't built anymore with a dining room, a kitchen.
Right, exactly.
All right? And so some guy would planned his house 20 years ago, the house would be nothing nobody wants. You know?
And that's why we're using the sustainable as a holistic approach. And I look at it as, just like you pointed out, this is a new media that we're using to engage more people that otherwise would not participate in the process. And I believe that through this participation, you're building ownership over concepts and ideas that ultimately the council will discuss. But you'll be engaging, whether it's young professionals or seniors or whoever uses this, that we're not likely to come out when it's 8 degrees or snowing or raining to a public meeting that's scheduled in a finite time on a finite day. And ultimately, I think we'll get to that long-term vision faster because we've engaged more people and you're hearing from a broader audience. I mean, that's the hope. That's the sincere hope. This is the first time we're trying it. I don't think we're out a lot of money, but I think it's the first step and going in the right direction and looking at it in a much more comprehensive and modern approach. And as you pointed out, the single-family home with large bedrooms on a large lot is not for everyone. A lot of young people are choosing not to own a home. Maybe what comes out of this is a housing style that's different than we've considered in the past. Retail is changing with the new economy. Transportation, younger people are choosing to own fewer cars, using multiple public transit, living in walkable communities. So we hope that these questions will start uncovering some of these ideas. Ultimately, we have to synthesize it. So that's the whole purpose of this approach.
I think that, you know, this has to be done, really it has to be done more often to get some kind of a, you know, when you say 5 years ago, so many things have changed in 5 years. The walkability, you know, bicycles, whatever have you. I mean, in 5 years, things change a lot. You could probably almost take that plan and say, you know, that's old people stuff.
Right. In theory, we're supposed to look at it once a year.
Yeah.
But we need to, by law, look at it at least every 5 years.
But to get a reading, you almost have to do it more often.
And that's part of why we provide the annual report by the commission on what has been accomplished, what's been reviewed, and what we'd like to work on. So the council has fresh ideas each year. And again, this is just, it's not the end-all, be-all, but I think it's a step in the right direction. And I'm cautiously optimistic that we're going to get much more participation, and ultimately the council can feel more comfortable about the decisions that they make when we adopt the
Who
plan.
can believe they pay $1,500 a month for one bedroom loft, you know, and the bathrooms aren't even, there's not even what do you call it? There's no privacy.
Yeah.
It's just like one big room, and
Right.
and the heating thing, you got a bulb hanging from the wire, and I mean, you know, if you said to me, oh, we're going to build this units of these houses and show it to you, are you crazy? You know, and yet it turned around, and that's what people want.
Right.
And the older the building, the better off.
Right.
But anyway, I think it's interesting, you know. Yes, Mr. Cruz.
Yeah, Jerry, you hit the nail on the head with regard to the engagement of, I think, new people that haven't been engaged in some of these decisions in the past, and it looks like it's fairly user-friendly so that anybody wanting to use this can be able to do so. One of the questions I had was, is there, when they set up their profiles, is there any way we can verify that they're actual Southfield residents?
Well, here's the thing. We certainly don't want to discourage business people who spend money and time here. However, when they log in, okay, they have to put a username They can choose whether they share some of the information about age and gender, public or not, but that homepage username is tied to a zip code. And will be able to filter and know that 35% of the respondents are from the southwest portion of the city, 15% are outside the city, 22% are from the northeast portion of the city. So we'll have a sense of that without knowing specifically who answered what. So there is some filters that are built in, as Sarah had, when we get 100 responses and then 1,000 and everything in between, it keeps changing, so we can daily see the progress of likes, dislikes, who the profiles are and what part of the city they're coming from. But we are all in it together, and so they don't filter between resident and non-resident, but we will be able to tell if where their zip codes are coming from. But we certainly want, as I've used before, every white-collar office worker supports 9 additional square feet of retail and restaurant and so much of this and so much of that. So if somebody's coming here every day and they say, I'd like, a more walkable retail area, that's as important, and that's how we'll approach it.
And the only other thing I have is with the survey, once they take the survey and answer those questions, are they locked out from doing it again? So you don't have people doing
What'll happen is, I believe, during the 2-week period, they would have to, if they were going to do 2 responses, they would have to create 2 usernames.
Okay.
But once the 2-week period ends, you can't vote on that topic anymore, although that topic and the answers and questions will still be available on the site. But they've said out of 2 million users, they've only had to take down 1 name for inappropriateness. And that by putting your name and personal information, it helps to block. Now, somebody creative can always come up with a false name and identity, but you're going through an awful lot of trouble. Also, they said that the way we asked the questions were engendering positive responses, so it's not a gripe section type of thing. Even though the open-ended stuff, then the last filter is Michael, who has to deal with it on other postings, and our staff will be looking at it daily, so if there's something that's inappropriate, we can shut it down. But they've said that out of 2 million responses of recipients, they've only had, in their entire history, take down 1 person. Just the way it's formulated.
But to piggyback off Mr. Cruz's question, is there any way that you can limit the time and email addresses then? Like, will it block, if somebody's creating a profile and they put in their email address, and they create another profile and use their same email address, is there a red flag or something to stop that from happening?
My understanding is that there only could be 1 person tied with 1 email. We also, through this process, we have the support staff that gives us technical advice. So if there's something that we can't handle on our own, we can contact the home office, and they have access to help us with those questions.
I'm all for this. Today, whether it's Facebook or every radio and television station, newspapers, they're all doing this, and there's a whole group of people out there that's how they communicate. They're not going to find a stamp and fill out a form and mail it. They're just not. So, I think you have to do both, given particularly the age of some of the folks in our community that are not that tech savvy or don't go online. But I think this is a great approach. My only question was, in the past when it was just a survey, putting your name down was optional. And is there any way that this someone could be anonymous? For whatever reason, maybe they have something that's valid, but they really didn't want to put their name.
Well, what we've been told is to keep this on the up and up.
Yeah.
There's got to be ownership, and you have to log your name.
Well,
now,
I agree with
choose,
that,
right? But if someone really wanted to be anonymous, they could do it the old-fashioned way.
Yeah.
We can have the questions available in hard copy, and someone could submit them. Yeah. But as you know, that just opens up a can of worms sometimes.
Well, I remember when Nick did the questionnaire in the boxes out in the lobby, you know, your name was optional. And some people might feel more comfortable, not that they're up to anything.
Right. Well, we hope that we are going to be able to have at least a static display in the either City Hall lobby or the Planning Department lobby. And then if someone wanted to, they can still do the old-fashioned way.
Well, I mentioned this before, National League of Cities did this. And, I mean, tons of people got on the app and did the feedback on the conference, things that they liked or saw, or questions they had, and other people responded. It was very, very popular with a whole segment of the people that attended the conference.
And we can tie this in with the city's app as well.
Yeah.
Check my address and telephone number. Whatever it is.
Well, we tied right in with the city's website.
Yeah,
so
we'll
if
check
that's
it
not
in.
correct, we'll coordinate with Michael.
Michael, check out the information on mine, will you?
Absolutely.
Mr. Frazier.
Yeah, there were a couple, 3 points I'd like to make. One is, I think getting citizen input is real important. And I also want to make a reference to the National League of Cities. There was, in one of our breakout sessions a couple, 3 years ago, there was an alderman from Chicago that said that he gets a piece of the city budget for his ward, and each year he had his staff decide what they were going to spend it on, and they always got complaints from the people that, you know, how come you didn't do this, how come you didn't do that? So what he did was he invited neighborhood associations and or whatever, the leaders of the community, and had a questionnaire and said, okay, here's the amount of money that you get to spend. I want you to go out and meet with all your people, come up with a plan, what you want to spend it on. And while he was thinking landscaping, they were thinking repave the streets.
Right.
And ended up, they were a lot more satisfied. He spent his budget the way they wanted to rather than the way he wanted to. So I see this parallel to that.
There's actually a question, I was going through the library, and it said if you had $1,000 to spend,
yes,
how would you appropriate it among these categories?
Right.
And we've done that again with the dots or monopoly money.
Right.
So we could certainly incorporate that as one of the specific questions. But
Right.
I get your bigger point is that
right.
you start to see where some of the priorities are coming.
Right. But the rather than him making the decisions, the citizens
Right.
helped him make the decisions
Right.
on how to spend their tax dollars.
Right.
And they were a lot more satisfied. The second point is, you said that you didn't want to mail these all out because it was very costly and all. But why not put them in a water bill?
Well, I believe DPW or DPS mentioned that could go out to water bills, and we could, these little placards,
Yeah.
we could put that information in there.
Put some creative,
Yeah.
catchy things.
Right. Sarah, could you go to that? So we are hoping to cover all of these angles, and we've got a list. We have a committee that meets weekly. With the blessing tonight, we will work towards the launch, and we hope to hit this in multiple ways. So, with city administration's approval, we can incorporate these in tax bills, we can incorporate these in water bills. It's about the timing.
Yeah. Water bills go out a lot more often than tax bills.
Right.
The water bills go out in envelopes?
Pardon?
The water bills go out in envelopes?
Yeah.
So we'll have to size this to make sure it fits in the card.
Because when you were making your presentation, you said that you'd have them out here in the lobby. But I've been here, and any number of people come in, know where they're going, never stop at the desk, either coming in or going out. So
Well, I was hoping that with the cooperation of all departments, that's why we gave a preview, that each counter will have them. And again, this is just to try to cover all the bases. They have some statistics that you're only going to get about 3 to 5% participation if you do it through traditional sources. You're going to get 10 to 15% if you do it this way. And the maximum amount of participation is through social media today. But this is not the end-all or be-all.
Right. And you partially answered this, and that is folks with no internet access, and they don't come in. How do they know about this?
Well, again, we're hoping that cable's going to have it run. It's going to be on our website. It's going to be on the DDA.
No, they don't have internet access.
I'm just saying, we're trying to hit all of the buttons. You know? And then ultimately, with your permission, we'd like to do a briefer version of this, on TV, and then just constantly keep getting the information out. As I said, Mr. Spence and I have sent out a number. We haven't had the best response yet to all the neighborhood groups, and said we're available to come. We'll come and do a presentation, and we're gonna, we can have this stuff to hand out. So we're trying to do it the old-fashioned way as well as this, and we're not going to get everybody, but we think we're going to get much more coverage, exponentially more people engaged this time.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to hear, Terry, and maybe you can take it back to the community, how we can engage the younger side. It'd be great to hear what they say in terms of shifting Southfield.
Right, and really, if I said this is geared towards younger people, then the older. This is geared for everybody, but especially, I think the younger people will embrace this because this is something they can do on their own time. They're very comfortable with social media and Facebook and all that. I really, hoping that the Jeremy Moss generation really embraces as he's sitting there in the corner smiling. But yes, this is working with our student engagement coordinator, LTU, to try to really get the word out to that generation.
And you said the report will come back to council at the end of the...
Yeah, so this will be a 5-month intake process, and then at the end of that, as we'll assimilate all the information together, and then we'll start a series of workshops with the Planning Commission and the council over several months before you adopt it, because there's a prescription of public hearings and notices that we have to follow. But prior to that, we will be bringing back this information to you on a regular basis.
Yeah, I would like to get...
So we can give you monthly reports or, whatever is convenient. I'm here at these study sessions and so forth, so we could provide 5-10 minute updates and information as we put it together.
An email,
right.
An email update. Okay, at this time, we need a consensus to move forward. Mr. Lane? A consensus to move forward? No.
Yes.
Mr. Simon?
Yes.
I say yes before I do see the value here.
Thank you.
Be in touch. Let's move on. Let's see how the rest of the agenda here. The next item is the review of the city's golf division.
The next item is golf courses. For council knowledge, and we'll present at a later date, we completed our audit, submitted it to the state, and at December 31st. Parks and Rec as a cost center did go into their fund balance of at $181,000. We had originally budgeted them going in almost $377,000 more. So as an entity, the golf courses are, I believe, void of capital expenditures and moving closer to a sustainable cost center. And I'll remind council that the recent relocation of the senior center out of McDowell Towers, that's a $200,000 plus line item savings. Getting out of the cooperative store at McDowell Towers was running, that was Golf Parks and Rec was underwriting that to the tune of $22,000 a year. So we've done since the audit at June 30th a number of items. This item was originally presented to the Council Finance Committee in December. October. And, my marching orders to Doug and his staff have been, more focused on, what can we do to get to a sustainable model, recognizing that we have a number of large capital expenditures. In an ideal circumstance, it would be great to be having a discussion about some type of financing and knocking out renovations of, the Beechwood Center, our center here. So those items are on our radar screen. Relative to our financial operations on an annual basis, in the fiscal year that just ended, we spent about $300,000 in capital projects. Inglewood Park, some investment at the ice arena. We've also had some additional major personnel departures. Staff will be coming back and making some recommendations relative to restructuring our personnel obligations. I want to turn this over to Doug Block, and we're hoping to get a consensus to move forward on these three items here.
Thank you, Mr. Zorn. Good evening, council, Mr. Mayor, and members of the audience. I know when you first woke up this morning and there were single digits on the thermometer, golf was probably the most prominent thing on everybody's mind. Can you hear me okay?
Can't hear you.
Is that better?
No, keep talking.
All right. What I'd like to present is a little bit of history with the golf industry, specifically how it has affected the city of Southfield. And then I'm recommending, as Mr. Zorn suggested, a multi-tiered approach to get us to expense neutral within the golf division. Current state of the golf division reached its peak in popularity back in 2005. Nearly every measure of golf participation has been on the decline, both in the numbers of people playing and the different venues that are available. The golf industry is experiencing market saturation, not only on a national level, but in southeastern Michigan as well. What you see below here are two, what they used to call scatter diagrams with different pinpoints. On the left, both of these are provided from the Detroit News. The one on the left shows the market saturation in southeast Michigan, and the one on the right shows the location of all the golf course opportunities that people have to spend their money playing golf in Oakland County. As I mentioned before, Southfield's golf division, both Evergreen Hills and Beechwoods, has not been immune to the trend that I just described. Between 2012 and 2014, the number of rounds decreased from a little over 46,000 to about 35,000 rounds. That's a drop of about 20%. I'm sorry, that's actually a drop of about 30%. And the combined revenue between both courses has decreased from a little over $750,000 to a little over $600,000, or a decrease of about 20% over that 3-year period. So as Mr. Zorn and I just mentioned, when we looked at the department 2 or 3 years ago at our major businesses, the golf course, the senior center, and the pavilion were 3 major loss leaders that needed to be addressed. So the end goal is to get the golf division back to expense neutral. First topic that I'd like to discuss of this 3-tiered approach is the initiation of a new City of Southfield golf portal, a dedicated portal, which would incorporate an online mobile registration system that portal that integrates the current registration system that we currently use through Smith Systems. Research was done by Technology Services, thank you Laverne, as well as our department in 2014, and in 2015, with your blessing, we would like to proceed with the implementation of this new portal. Features will include an aerial view of each golf course, online tee time reservation capability, and as I mentioned before, it would integrate with the current mobile application system that council recently approved. The second tier is the introduction of wine and beer sales. We would like to be given the green light to proceed with this exclusively at our Evergreen Hills facility during the 2015 golf season. Estimates, if we were permitted to do this, it would be $50,000 revenue neutral to Parks and Rec's bottom line. It's basically a 50-50 split between Evergreen and Beechwoods. We would probably generate a little more revenue from these sales at the Evergreen Hills course. Chief Hawkins was kind enough to pay the Parks and Rec board a visit back in October. He and I had several conversations, and it's been vetted through the police department. The game plan is to have 2 non-career individuals manage both the food and beer concessions. It takes the current starters, myself, as well as the golf pro out of the equation. And it would include everything from food and beverage, not just alcohol, but snacks, coffee, and the rangers. Basically, these 2 individuals would replace the function that the rangers and starters provide of having available water on the golf courses for sale. The other reason that we're recommending the introduction of beer and wine sales is it'll make our courses a more desirable location for leagues and for outings. That's a huge, potentially untapped market. And the city of Southfield, both Evergreen and Beechwoods, it's one of the few remaining dry 9-hole public golf courses that remain in southeast Michigan. Just real quickly, you can tell by this extensive liquor license analysis, this lists all the courses that currently provide alcohol. As of the summer of 2014, that's Oakland County. That's for Macomb and Wayne. So you can tell there's probably 2 or 3 left of us that are dry 9-hole municipal golf courses. So what I'm recommending is that council grant us the ability to proceed to obtain a license to serve beer and wine, not hard alcohol, at our Evergreen Hills golf course exclusively for the upcoming 2015 season. Third tier of this revenue-generating effort, if you will, is the introduction of foot golf, which is one of the few growth industries in the golf in the golf business today. And what I'd like to show you is a very brief YouTube video that kind of shows you how the game is played in action. golf, and by the way, we're not responsible for the music, but the beauty of foot golf is that it attracts multiple audiences. You know, whether it's LTU students down the street, you saw that, you know, the 20-something demographic, or if a grandparent or a parent wants to, they're the more traditional golfer, and they want to bring along like a 7-year-old child or grandchild, the holes are set off to the side of the existing golf course layout, and the kid can play foot golf while their parents or grandparents are playing the traditional holes. As you saw, it's played with a regulation number 5 soccer ball, 21-inch diameter cups, and the rules largely correspond to the traditional rules of golf. There's even a sanctioning body. We've already signed up to be sanctioned by them if we are allowed to proceed. They basically have a monopoly on the production of these 21-inch cups. It's good business to be in. Why foot golf? 15 courses in southeast Michigan, including the ones listed right there. We took a field trip out to the locations in Canton and Plymouth, and they confirmed that it's an excellent opportunity to penetrate a saturated market and to really redefine your market niche. Low cost barrier to entry is $2,500 for the cups, the flags, and get sanctioned by that sanctioning body. Potential to attract younger generations. The other huge untapped market is corporate meetings and fundraising opportunities. Joseph Boria, the tight end for the Lions, when we happened to visit the course out at Strategic Fox, that weekend he was hosting through his charitable foundation a foot golf tournament, and the proceeds were for Michigan's Urban Farming Initiative. There's also the potential to cross-sell foot golf memberships in conjunction with the driving range, the heated tee facility, and a potential short game facility. And we'd like to be given the green light to proceed to begin marketing in the 2015 season exclusively at our Beachwoods Golf Course. That course is more, in terms of its level of play, it's more amenable to a foot golf setup. And we use informational programs and both digital and print media to market and introduce Southfield and the business community to foot golf.
We need a roll call on this? Well, let's see if there are any other questions.
Thank you.
Council, are there any questions? Mr. Frazier?
Do the foot golf players provide their own soccer ball, or does the city?
They usually do, but some of the facilities we visited, they have them for rent, as well as the shoes in their pro shops.
I know over at Beachwoods, there's one hole where they can kick it over the fence into the Rouge River. How do you handle that?
We're going to have to sit down and you diagram it at the suggestion or recommendation of the sanctioning body, and then we determine you can cut the holes, based on that.
Okay, because I can see somebody that comes out to play and kicks the ball over the fence and says, "Oh, all right," and comes back later on the other side of the fence and takes it home.
That's true.
I don't know if we need to have a deposit on the balls, for rent, but
right.
Because everybody plays golf, brings their own.
That's an excellent idea. I mean, or you could leave collateral or your driver's license or something like that to make sure that we get the balls back, that we let them out.
when you were doing an investigation on this, we have a lot of golfers that come out and play for fun. But there are some folks that think they're serious golfers, and they don't take any kind of a distraction lightly. And if there's a grandparent out there with their 7-year-old grandchild out there kicking the ball around, you know, is that going to tick some golfers off?
We've discussed if we're going to alienate or cannibalize our existing golf base. I mean, there are ways that you can schedule foot golf into dead time or unpopular times when the course isn't normally used. So we can control that through scheduling. On the other hand, I mean, they have to understand we're a very nicely maintained 9-hole municipal golf course. It's not an 18-hole, you know, PGA championship.
Sure.
So, you know, our customers are they're gonna have to understand that.
Okay. On the beer and wine, I know at one time when we did did the audit, the city audit, one of the complaints was that there wasn't as much control over the finances, you know, the cash drawer, and we've solved that problem. But do we, in your process of thinking this through, how do we maintain control of the beer and wine so that we can account for all of it, doesn't get out of it?
The two individuals that I have in mind, and Mr. Zorn and I have discussed this on several occasions, have golf, food and beverage backgrounds. And that's why, as I think I alluded to before, I want to take the rangers and the starters out of the mix per se to attain better controls over that whole operation. I'm actually meeting Bob Murray, my facilities right-hand person, and both the golf pro as well as the golf superintendent are meeting with a couple of those individuals Thursday. They're going to assess the look at the current layout, and if we have to, we're going to go out and either purchase or build in-house. Matt Dinan is an excellent carpenter, but different structures under lock and key. So even myself, I wouldn't have access to it.
Okay. And the last question I have is, would you anticipate having wine and beer carts on the course?
Right now, I'd like to keep it just stationary in the clubhouse, just for, you know, better control.
That's the first question somebody's going to ask.
Right, and again, that's why I would prefer to do it here at Evergreen as opposed to Beechwoods. The police department's right here. Like I mentioned, Chief Hawkins and I had several conversations. He answered all the questions that the Parks and Rec Board had. And again, I don't want it to be out of sight, out of mind. You know, why aren't you starting it over at Beechwoods? That's why I prefer over here.
Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions?
I'll move a Rule 10.
Support. We have a motion by Mr. President, supported by Ms. Seymour for Rule 10. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
And then I'll make a motion to approve sale of beer and wine at Evergreen Hills and foot golf at Beechwood.
Support. We have a motion by Mr. Seibert, supported by Ms. Seymour to approve basically the review here of beer and wine sales at Evergreen as well as the foot golf location. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you very much.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is the purchase of city-owned property, 26 Wide Street, adjacent to the Young City Gilmore Street.
Madam President, here to present this out to the council, but I believe Rabbi Coach spoke to the West Council parcel, required 4 parcels for Michigan Department of Transportation, and in excess.
We'll get a chance to hear it.
Okay, sorry.
Crowe to make the presentation, and then we can chime in later.
Okay.
Rabbi.
Just gonna get the lights here. Would you like me to do an introduction, or? Okay. And I know Ms. Schultz is here too, that can maybe help answer some questions. But just as far as orientation, there's a large tract of land that is owned by MDOT. At the time the expressway was built, and there was a strip of,
Give us the street for
this
orientation.
is Sherriff Place and Fairfax Street, and there's a, Seymour is a unimproved road that runs, it's a paper street.
What's the street up there?
This is Lincoln Drive. So this is where the deck park is located, here, and the land in here is owned by MDOT as part of the mitigation area for the freeway. And at one point, MDOT had a 20-foot wide strip of land to access this property for a future transformer that they deemed it not necessary anymore. And they therefore sold these properties, and the city acquired this 20-foot easement for potential widening of the right-of-way. That's my understanding of the background and how the city acquired the 20-foot strip. Once MDOT realized that they didn't need this land for a transformer anymore, they, I believe, went on the market and sold the 4 lots to the rabbi here. But the city has maintained the 20-foot strip for future use. Our office only got involved as part of a potential split lot combination, where we deemed that this property does not physically abut onto a major thoroughfare or a public right-of-way. The rabbi has proposed acquiring the property so that his frontage of his property can meet our requirements for residential land, have access to a future road, and then the city engineer could speak to access along that right-of-way. But this is this unusual strip of land that is not a parcel in and of itself, and is not part of the public right-of-way, but it's a buffer strip between having lots developed and or accessed by the city. So, Ms. Schultz, you want to address potential access to the property?
Sure. Good evening, everybody. One of the things we were talking about, we have right-of-way there. It is an unimproved right-of-way. It's just wooded area kept natural. Most of the area at the west end of Seymour there is really just utilized as the driveway to the residential house here. So they've got a big wide drive approach, and we have this is our roadway that comes to the end here, and then really from this piece forward, it's really just an extension of that person's driveway. We don't maintain that little piece. So when I was talking about options of different ways that I would suggest that we do this, right now I don't foresee any plans anytime in the future that we're actually going to build a road from here to here. We do have a sewer that runs in this area that's already this unimproved right-of-way, so I think we should maintain that just so that we have that access to our utility. But this here, we could really go one of two ways. We could go ahead and sell that. Right now it's a parcel, it's not actually right-of-way, so it could be sold, and then it can just be used as part of the development for the residential homes. Or if we think we want to keep the option open of maybe someday in the future we may want to build a public road all the way down, in that case we would maintain that property and somehow,
legally we can convert it into public property that is to be used as right-of-way. So the big difference right now, we're not going to be requesting that they build a public road to city standards or anything, because they're talking about, 2 houses, possibly 3, and they're just for cost-wise and to make it more feasible, we're thinking that it's probably just going to be a common driveway and keep it narrow, that a home would access. I'm not sure what your latest plans were as far as number of properties.
Either 1 or 2.
One or two?
Yeah, there's no room for 3.
But, right now, we don't have the full width for building a road all the way to Fillmore. So, even if we converted this all and made it a 50-foot right-of-way, we come down to here and we're pinched down to 30. Yeah, it's more clear on that picture, so. It was just depending on which way the city wants to move forward. And I think as far as developing the properties, it's going to make a difference because they need to know where their front property line is so that they can meet the setback requirements accordingly. And if we maintain it and call this the right-of-way, all their setbacks will be from the red line back. If the city decides to sell this, and then their setbacks are going to be from that black line, or over here from the yellow, back for their front setback.
Okay, Council, are there any questions?
We need a roll time?
We gotta know what we're gonna do.
Well, I know I'm gonna do.
So
we gotta know what plan to.
Staff's asking for is there an appetite to sell this piece of property, and then for allow us to come in and negotiate. What we talked about was selling that strip at fair market value. And I would work with the assessor to get that fair market value, as well as memorialize what he's proposing to build on that property. Not necessarily interested in recommending that we sell that strip of property unless we know that we're going to see some tax yield built on it. And what's been discussed is 2 single-family homes. So if we could get perhaps a consensus to allow us to negotiate that, come back in 26 with the purchase agreement.
Okay, that's better.
Seymour.
Yeah, are these 4 lots, what we're talking about, is that all we're talking about, not the other green strip? This is the part you're talking about maintaining?
The city owns the green strip.
The dark green strip.
Yep.
And the yellow green is what he
That's what he purchased from them.
Right.
So the real issue is whether we want to keep this. You already own this lot.
Right. So the green, what you highlighted in green is what the city owns, and the yellow is what I own.
Yeah.
And what I'm requesting from council is to purchase the green little strips.
Do you need that?
Yeah, I need it because there's no access otherwise to the yellow lot, which is our lot.
The green is blocking, keeping.
Correct. Because after the green is the city, which is the yellow right here. The green will be the same as the blue right over here.
Got it, okay.
So if the road will be the yellow, and then this will be our property over here. I'll buy it from the city.
Yep. And excuse me, Rabbi, could you give us the full name as well as your address or business?
Okay, my full name is Ari Kostowitz, and I live actually not far in Southwood, which is a few blocks from this property.
And what's your address? We need it for
25274 Southwood Drive in Southfield.
Mr. Fakowski.
Yes. What is the sewer used for?
It's a combined sewer right there. It connects, it's really available. It's not really serving anyone. I don't have the utility map in front of me. I know that this property here is served from a sewer off of Fillmore, so there's a connection that drains the neighborhood either east or west. So we really need to maintain.
And it would be my recommendation that we keep that right away.
Yeah.
We know we've got some stormwater issues that we're looking at in that area. With the construction of Southfield Road and possibly the easement, we're looking for areas for capacity to address that. We know with the most recent storm, there's an opportunity to have a discussion with the state, FEMA, regarding some dollars for mitigation. and staff, with working with our consulting engineers, we've actually started some of those preliminary conversations.
Do you have flooding in the area?
Pardon?
Is there flooding in the area?
Yes.
Does this affect either way, any value as far as diminishing the homes that are getting flooded?
Well, obviously, the structures, and if I misstep, correct me, the structures that he will build will have to address today's stormwaters. They may, the homes may have a higher elevation, there'll be some engineering concerns that have to be addressed. I just want to preserve that right away, that I'm of the opinion that between Southfield Road reconstruction in the future and possibly some other design, we may be able to reduce this, the number of rain events or flooding events we have in that community.
20 feet enough to get in there and...
Well, we may need some more, but we're just now starting some of the preliminary conversations, and our first objective is to secure funding from FEMA from those...
What's your recommendations?
I'm recommending that we move forward with the sale, and I want to maintain that right away, because one of the techniques in this is to frame the neighborhood out and provide relief for stormwater.
Right. So then, if I understand correctly, I would purchase this land, and then my lot will start from over here, right? From after that?
From the black line.
From the back line, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, Council, we can, Ms. Moore.
I'm still not, I understand he's landlocked, but are you planning on, are you thinking of selling this strip of land to him, or keeping that?
So, we're proposing to sell the strip, that front strip. In the final purchase agreement, it may very well all be in a front yard setback, and we'll probably retain the easement for something underground. I just wanted first, is there an appetite with council to sell it? And then, we would sell, it would be a front yard setback area. That strip would probably allow us, if we needed for future construction of a storm sewer facility, or even possibly have some of it in that area, we would retain that option in the purchase agreement.
So it doesn't affect the road at all?
No.
Just the easement is because of the drainage that you might need?
That's correct. One of the techniques is you find yourself like, parallel stormwater, and sewers are built, yeah. The old, old homes used to have years ago for the rain.
Right.
Yeah. But it's a large sewer, and in the area under Eureka, we've got a 14-foot diameter one, Eureka from Inkster all the way to Biddle, Wyandotte.
So is there proper drainage now, or proper?
Well, their site will have proper drainage, because that's today's engineering standards. It'll have stormwater and such.
Stormwater and all of what you would expect to find in a developed area, as opposed to,
We have our architect here if you want, Zach, he'll tell you how, he can answer how we're going to, in terms of the sewer on this property.
As opposed to sewer.
So this will all be sanitary.
Okay.
Well, this area is a combined sewer district, but we'll try to, in the construction, address one of these from other moved down.
Yeah. Is this going to complicate the issue? Because he is only concerned about purchasing the piece of that 20-foot piece that's parallel to his land.
We can preserve the city's right in the purchase agreement, that in that 20-foot strip, we would have an easement. And
I understand that, but what about the piece that's on this end and that end? Is it going to, it's going to have a different deed and all that kind of stuff with it? Because you're going to have to deed that piece of property to him. the 20-foot piece, that's the length of his property?
Well, he's looking to buy the full 160-foot length.
It's all one parcel, there's no way to divide it.
It goes right to the...
It goes to the end, yeah.
To the end?
It goes from one, yeah. I mean, in theory, I don't really need this, but it's just one parcel. I don't care even to keep...
How far does it go?
It goes all the way to the street.
Yeah, but how far does it go to the left?
It's 20 foot here, and there's another, I don't know, I could look at my papers, but it's probably another, 80 feet here maybe? Even like probably 60 feet here.
And it ends at the...
It ends at the street at Fairfax, right over here.
On the other end, where
Another
does it end? The other end of that?
On the left side.
Left side.
Oh, it goes from one end to the end. You asking the whole length?
Oh, it just stops right at the end of your property?
Yeah, it's at the end, yeah. So right over here, you can see right over here, it's easy to see. It's from one end to the next end. So it doesn't really go to the street.
Okay, I thought maybe they just drew it
No.
to the end of your...
It doesn't go to the end, there's a house
okay,
here.
all right.
So it goes all the way.
Then that's okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Is that it?
That's it, yeah.
No, I'm done.
All right, so why don't we take a consensus to refer this back to administration and forward legal to a draft?
And we'll turn to the assessor for a fair market value.
He had a value already, he already...
Okay, we're gonna refer to our administration.
So, you can divide this, but we're gonna maintain access to funds.
We'll maintain a future easement for any construction of the road. We'll preserve our construction easement rights, any stormwater, and his front yard setback would be beyond the 20 feet, so it should not be an issue for anything he's planning on building.
I would have to use that as the front line.
It's not back line.
It's a back line, yeah, but you can, but underneath you can dig if you need anything, we'll give you, right,
It's
there's
a driveway.
yeah.
All right, without any opposition, this will be referred to administration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next item on our agenda is additional responsibility and compensation adjustment for our economic services. Just want to take that as well.
Laura, do you wanna? All right, I will. We're proposing to increase Laverne Walker's, who is currently the director of our technology services group. We're proposing to expand the areas that she supervises and give her our central services division, which is our print shop and mailroom. In addition, for the last couple of years, Ms. Walker has been acting as the city's network administrator. And this is, we're proposing to increase her annual compensation from $92,171 to $102,000, plus give her a one-time lump sum payment of $8,000 in recognition that she has been acting as our network engineering director or manager. In the current budget, we did propose billing and posting the network administrator's position, and then we had dialogue with Laverne. She's been doing this for a few years. Can we continue to do this? And that's how we came up with this. Can we increase her salary? Why the central services group? Council will recall when we went to all of these new color copiers and new copiers, one of our goals is to reduce the number of printers throughout the city. With social media, we're doing less printing. At some point in the future, with the city council perhaps moving partially or wholly to a paperless system, there's opportunities for this entity to be put together. So in recognition of her work as our network administrator for the last 2-3 years, as well as the what some of the goals are, what we'd like to see with all these new copiers, we're proposing to increase her compensation to $102,000, and then the network administration and the central services. I've also asked Laverne to take on a couple other special projects. Throughout the year, we asked her, she'll get a call, can you take on this? The mobile lab, she did all of the initial research for us, and these applications of technology. One of the items I've asked her for is a centralized complaint tracking module. that when most of our complaints come into the mayor's office, I'd like those complaints to be entered into some type of system where multiple people can monitor the complaints. Our mechanism today is we're all chasing different emails, who sent what back. I don't have a clear method of looking at, what are the bulk of our complaints, what areas are they coming in, what we can do. They all come in piecemeal, and I will tell you, if my regular email, Microsoft, are very difficult to follow. On my cell phone, where the chain is all linked, I can follow them somewhat, but that's one of the projects we've asked her to take on. I think I probably outlined 3-4 projects that I'd like to see her add. One of the large ones, ultimately, in February, we'll be bringing forward some of the recommendations from Wade Trim regarding the building department. Ultimately, for those recommendations, as I've reviewed them in their preliminary state, they're going to come down to our ability to adapt and put the right technology in place. Whether it's digitizing more of our record keeping and allowing people to get their FOIAs on, without having to come to City Hall, maybe pay a slight fee for that, or the new technology in our field people's hands. Some of the accounting mechanisms, they all keep coming back to a central person. We want to be clear that we've proposed this till the end of this fiscal year. We still may come back and want to evaluate how we're staffing this network administrator's role. Ms. Walker's here in the event that council has any questions, as well as Lori Siskin, our HR director.
I think better be careful, she'll have more authority than you.
Fred, just as a understanding, Central Services Division is responsible for the handling of mailroom printing and storage supplies. Who does that now?
Right now, they're being supervised actually by myself right now, and it's been going up. And I walk into, I'll be very candid, I walk into the room where we keep all the ink cartridges. It looks like we're at the Staples, in the aisle with all the ink cartridges. And that was part of what we said in November, October, November, when we brought the new copier. We want to reduce the number. That's the amount of equipment that IT has to service. Not every employee needs a printer at his or her desk. They're all different models. When people need access, they have a code they have to enter. We've got cost controls there. But I need my information technology person to help direct that effort.
The ink cartridges that are presently stored, there's no reason to store them anymore. We take the computer and we get your model number and your type of machine you have, and you can show when you have 40% off, and we just deliver you a cartridge. You have no storage.
That's the type of thing we want to get to. So reduce the number, and when we do need it, we don't have thousands of dollars.
That's how we save people a lot of money, $10,000–$15,000 by putting them on the system. But if that, I think there's a lot more to trying to justify the increase. I think there's more coming down the tech field that they're going to be asked, they're going to be doing way above what she presently is doing. These techies are compensated for their ability to get, things down to savings.
There is
so I wouldn't be against this. I would just say that some of these things that we are paying for today in the way of technology, it's all going bye-bye now.
She's our innovation director, and a lot of as customers, different department heads come to her outlining their goals and objectives. Doug Block with this new golf registration. What we've said is We want you to be able to use your mobile app to do that. And we find ourselves that she's one of our common threads throughout the city, our information technology and our accounting divisions. And our innovation director, when new technology's out there, who's monitoring what can be produced and such, and the Mind Mixer. Our mobile app is going to be plugging and promoting that. We'll be able to send that broadcast message out. The thing that was set up in there from our Amber Alerts can be posted on. There's just so many different ways to more cost-effectively communicate with our residents. And so we're recognizing the fact that she's been doing this for a few years, recognizing that, and then expanding her role to integrate and take advantage of the cost savings that what I think we put in place last fall but haven't realized yet.
We took over an academy. I mean, I'm no longer connected with the company. I went to a real estate company instead. But anyway, we saved them over $6,000 a year. It's a little academy, and we bought all the cartridges back and swapped that for a service and things like that. There's so many deals out there now that we could really sharpen the pencil on a lot of these things.
I have a question. When you look at, and I'm looking at the savings that Walker is bringing. Okay, if we have a network engineer in for $150, she's doing really a low duty. I mean, is this really a fair compensation? I'm looking at it again now. I think it's worth more if we're increasing the salary of $10,000 and you look at the additional roles that she'll be
Part of
doing.
this is when you look at the hay system that we have in place for our HR functions and that, this takes her current level up to, that may be an evaluation that happens at a later date. Well, when we looked at the network administrator, one of the tasks we asked her to look at was what would happen if we contracted this out. When we contracted out, the numbers we were getting were, this was $150,000 a year expenditure. So yes, there is a huge savings.
Like if you contract it out, would that include benefits? Usually contract services would have benefits for employees. So what would be the actual salary?
That, when you got that when you were getting that number,
What was the question? Did that include benefits?
Come on and introduce yourself.
My name is Laverne Walker. Okay, so the question was, did that $150,000 include benefits? Well, that person would work for the contracting company. So actually, that $150,000 was actually just for 3 days to do the network engineering position, which didn't make sense. So that's why I went ahead and assumed the role, because I would still have to do it the additional 4 days. So, but normally when you deal with a contracting company, that company handles the benefits because they're working for more than just your company. So that would not be included.
I would definitely like this to use, I'd say every year, when we look at the compensations of a network engineer 3 days a week, and with them many of those duties, just making sure that we can,
certainly take a look at that. We and Ms. Sis can correct me if I'm wrong, our current HR model, looks at the complexity of task involved. It does factor, and in this area, we did factor in market competitiveness to where, often the hay model looks at certain tasks, but when the salary was set, they looked at where the market was as well. That was part of it. The reality is, for all of the people in our information technology group, they're a group that's highly in demand. They're well credentialed here, that we could lose people. And I'll be candid with the council. Part of my measure is I don't see a mass exodus either. Now, I know it's been a very different economy. At the same time, I want to keep as much talent here as possible. But when we did this evaluation, we looked at market.
I think our consultant who helps us always has that as
part of the number that they use to give us the final. So it's built in there. But the actual salary, in terms of moving her up in the pay grade, is probably the appropriate spot for now. I mean, that can be revisited. The additional compensation, the lump sum, you know, kind of translates to a year additional pay. So if, you know, there was any interest in council to adjust that up or down, that would be something else.
If we want to make it competitive, that could be one thing.
Right. And that's to compensate her for the extra work that she had been doing for the last couple of years, with some outside help.
We want to be fair and we want to be competitive. Right?
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, she's staying within the same pay grade, she's not jumping pay grades, right?
Correct.
So, this just recognizes the fact that, with a bucket, rather than being 3/4 of the way full, it's 7/8 full. So,
Yeah.
but she's still in the same bucket.
Correct. Ms. Walker happened to start working for us at a time when council made a decision that we were not going to do the management group step increases anymore. The pay for performance program kind of stopped just as she was coming in. So she really was someone who kind of unusually was stuck in the middle of her pay grade. Others had already been moved up to the top before she started. So she's one of our newer department heads, even though she's been here 10 years almost. And many of them have left since. But she did, you know, she was disadvantaged to a certain extent because of that. So we're trying to move her up about right around the 80-85 percentile in her pay grade now. She had been at 50 for this whole time. So that's what we're trying to address right now. And then recognizing the additional work that she's taken on with the network would be the lump sum payment. That's kind of a separate piece.
Okay, so we're looking for consent cities and then this will come on January 26th. Yes, ma'am. All right, without any opposition, we'll move forward to January 26th. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, the next item, thank you. All right, thank you, Mr. Nance, for doing this for such a long time.
Yes, the next council is a request to schedule a joint meeting conducted as a committee of the whole meeting between the city of Southfield and Providence Hospital. As council recalls, we usually meet on a yearly basis, and we've been going back and forth with Providence Hospital on a date, and I think back in November, we kind of secured this particular date. I did confirm with Providence, and they are excited to host us again this year, so I would request that we adopt an immediate need to act so we can schedule the meeting for January 21st, 6 o'clock p.m. at Providence Hospital. The meeting will be held in cafeteria B. And they've asked for council and management to attend.
What time?
6 o'clock p.m.
Yes. You're asking for what?
A real time, because we don't have another meeting.
I'll move to the okay.
We need support. We have a motion by Mr. Cybert, supported by Mr. Cruz for Rule 10. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I move the scheduling of a joint meeting with Providence Hospital and the City Council for January 21st, 6 p.m.
Support.
We have a motion by Mr. Cybert, supported by Mr. Frazier to have a meeting scheduled at Providence Hospital for January 21st. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ms. Banks, you'll take the next one as well?
Yes, the next item before you is our proposed meeting schedule for the 2015 calendar year. The schedule has been reviewed with our city administrator. The schedule that is attached does take into account upcoming elections for this year, conferences with the Michigan Price Regional Chamber of Commerce also takes into account the holidays. And we usually adopt this schedule at our regular meeting, but we present it at the committee of the whole meeting in case there's any, discussion or changes that you may want to make at this time.
Yeah. I don't think we have enough meetings. We're only meeting 2 times a month, one study meeting and one regular meeting, and I've been a constant complainer about Rule 10s. We've done 2 or 3 Rule 10s tonight, and I just think we're shorting the taxpayers by doing business at committee of the whole meetings that we ought to be doing in front of television. And for instance, we passed a $99 million bond issue at a committee of the whole meeting, and that, to me, is unconscionable. We're going to indebt the taxpayers for up to 11 years when we sell bonds, and yeah, they voted for it, but I think that deserved a debate in front of the cameras so that people knew what was going on. But really, it's just, we're supposed to be doing transparent business, and this doesn't seem like transparency to me, by not having enough meetings.
Well, if I can add, if you recall, several years ago, we used to have 4 meetings a month.
Yep.
Once meeting the whole, one regular, once meeting the whole, one regular.
Yep.
And there was a year when we were canceling more meetings than we were holding within a month. So at that time, Mr. Sherriff and I sat down and we reviewed the schedule, and it basically was 2 meetings a month. Now, there's nothing that says you cannot add additional meetings. In fact, there's nothing that says you cannot add a regular meeting. But what was happening is we had a calendar, it was published, and then last minute it was canceled. The public would come, they would get upset. So that's how we got down to the 2 meetings a month. And we always said council can, it was probably better to add a meeting and post it versus have the meeting online and then cancel it.
There's a lot of business that we ought to be doing that we aren't doing. And that is, when I first got on council, we had 4 meetings a month. The only time we didn't have a meeting on a Monday night was when it was the 5th Monday. But in those days, we had an opportunity to have all the boards and commissions, the departments, come to the councils and talk with us about what was going on. We haven't done that. We don't know what, as a council, we don't know what's going on in the city. And it gives them an opportunity to know who we are. We get to know who they are. And I just think we've lost that, and I think it's too much to lose.
Anyone else?
I think we ought to have at least 3 meetings.
Joan, the 2 meetings a month work with you, or would you, is there enough business?
We went with the schedule we had in the past. I'm not opposed to council, any schedule. I came from where I was for the last 11 years. We met on Tuesday night council, Monday night before every meeting. We were there for, just like this council, 4 or 5 hours in the study session. With this schedule, when I look at it, I wouldn't be opposed if every meeting went to a regular meeting, as long as we could have a study a couple hours before. And I will tell you, if you want to bring the boards and commission, staff is happy to start bringing them in a session to get some of that intercom dialogue going, and we're happy to schedule those as well. When the clerk and I sat down to go through the schedule, we looked at last year's and all of the other constraints. But I do agree that there are certain items that require sometimes more in depth, and I will tell you, I'm certainly open to it. And we've got, Northland in front of us, the parcel across the street.
I think this is
Those
gonna be a
are some
busy
very
year.
intense issues.
I think it's gonna be a busy year.
Um,
But I've been concerned about the boards and commissions, because they can do a great deal for us. And I don't have any idea what's going on with the boards and commissions.
Well, if I may, Madam President, there's a disconnect between what our boards and commissions do. They have certain charges, but in the budgeting process, they are completely void of being recognized in the budget process.
Mhm.
And at a certain point, if you want a total commission to do something, then work with their staff liaison and, let them outline what they want to do, and what council then makes a decision what services they're going to buy. Our planning commission, the master plan, there should be. We did have that joint meeting of the ZBA and the planning commission, and I thought that was interesting. I mean, and again, the way trim recommendations are gonna be rolling out soon, that look at a lot of how we staff some of those functions. And those need to be reviewed and a lot to go through. But I do like the idea of each of the commissions having a clear charge, and every commission chair should be able to tell you as council, these are our goals for 2015. These are our goals for 2016. These are the types of things. Parks and Rec being one of them.
Yeah, a couple of years.
There are some disconnects there.
A couple of years ago, and I think Ken will remember, and Don remember that when I was chair of the boards and commissions, that was my plan, to visit all the boards and commissions and...
What are you doing here?
Yeah, and boy, I found out how unpopular I really was.
Chair last this past year.
Was I?
Yes.
Yeah.
Chair of the board commission.
Yeah.
All right, so do we want to add a date, or your suggestion is that?
We can come back and add, I wouldn't mind hearing what commissions you'd like to start with. And then, I've heard from time to time former Councilman DeCassi, now acting mayor, talk about Thursday. I do believe we've got some issues that are in front of us that are gonna be, Sue and I spent 2.5 hours on the phone today on Northland. Mayor Picassi was there as well.
If I may suggest, why don't you go with what you have, and then you reevaluate what you're talking about.
Sure.
Maybe Mr. Frazier's item in there, and we can amend the calendar.
Right.
This is only January, we can amend the calendar to effectively put them where you need them, as opposed to just going ahead and...
Well, we're just right now trying to comply with the
Yeah, we have to do it. We have to do it tonight, yeah.
Right. Well, the 26th, anyway.
Yeah, within 10 days.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
Agreed.
I'm fine with that.
Okay, so then we will keep with the calendar as presented. Okay, thank you.
You have to vote on it?
I think it's going to be on the 26th.
It will be placed on the 26th.
Okay.
There's no rules.
No rules then?
Okay, Mr. Stone, you taking the next one?
Yes, as part of the acquisition of the parcel located in the northwest corner of Civic Center and Evergreen, we, within the purchase agreement, have a 90-day due diligence period. We'd like council's authorization to proceed with retaining SME USA of Plymouth for the purposes of conducting a limited geotechnical engineering survey. Basically, we're proposing there'll be 10 holes popped in the, drilled in the site. I think those are 30 feet, then another series a little bit deeper. And we've looked at some of the concept drawings. We don't know what the final is going to be, but we're in the process of doing our phase 1 environmental assessment. We were able to get a grant from the Oakland County Brownfield Consortium to pick up that cost. But as part of our due diligence, we want to do some soil borings. Some of you will recall, as we were working on the dirt deal, it became very concerning about how shallow, at what levels we were hitting water, and that these underground rivers and such. So the geometric spread on this will allow us to make sure that we have suitable soils for building in the future.
And if you recollect, the terms of the purchase agreement were that if within this 90-day due diligence period, you find some things either about the environmental, the soil, whatever, you would have the right to back out of that purchase agreement if you were so inclined. So it gives you all kinds of information about the property before you're committed to buy it.
Supposing we do the phase one environmental study, and we find that there's some real concern, some we didn't expect to find under the soil. We have to tell the owner, either we're going to have them clean it up, or we're going to discount the amount of money that we're going to pay them for it, if we want to clean it up. Well, let's say that we make the choice that we don't want either one. I mean, we don't want, we just don't want to.
You want to pass?
We want to pass on it. The fact that we've found that, are we in jeopardy of him saying, well, until you guys expose the bad problems under my soil,
right.
I could get X amount of money, but now I can't?
Right, no, I mean, at this juncture, that goes along with it. That he obviously, contractually, we have the right to do the study. The purchase agreement does also say, though, that whatever reports we get, we do need to deliver those as well to the current owner, so that they also know what the condition is.
But can we renegotiate the price then?
Absolutely, absolutely. You could do that. You could say, we're going to walk away. There's all kinds of options, but at least you have a knowledge of what we're getting into.
Well,
but
that makes sense.
Right.
But we don't have any financial obligation if he says,
no,
I was selling it for $6 million, now I can only sell
no,
for
you don't have liability for that.
Okay.
I'm less concerned about the environmental, and when we did the brownfield plan, phase one was done. And we also met with the entity that did the demolition, so we still need to go through that level of due diligence to establish. Michigan law would allow the city to get a baseline environmental assessment, kind of a date timestamp of who's responsible for what. The soil engineering is the one that I think, I'm more focused on, simply because of what we saw during. And I do have some concerns that when they did the demolition at the site, that we may see the soil compaction is the first 4 to 6, 8 feet may not be as compacted. Although it's had natural settlement for the last few years, there could be an issue where re-engineering that first level of soil could be a concern. And
which could be an expensive proposition.
And that, when you bring someone in and they constantly have to re-roll it, and again, all that depends upon what is built there.
Yeah. But by the same token, when we were building Evergreen Road, did we run into concerns that might give us a clue?
This was interesting because I originally turned to our engineering firms thinking we have an open bid for this type of soil boring. We don't do this depth on our roads. And I thought that was real interesting, and I've had some conversations. We don't go down 10 feet. We do our borings into our base, make sure we're usually in a nice, clean brown clay.
That's probably why we got trouble in Franklin.
It may very well be.
Yeah.
But I thought our geotechnical consultants went to these depths. And,
Any other questions, Council? Are you looking for a roll call?
yes, sir.
My point has been proven again and again.
How many is this?
The three today.
Are you making that?
Do we have a motion?
I'll move a Rule 10.
Frazier, support. Support. We have a motion by Mr. Frazier, supported by Mr. Tyler for Rule 10. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I move we enlist the contract of SME USA to conduct a limited geotechnical engineering survey at the property that we're looking at to purchase.
Support.
We have a motion by Mr. Frazier, supported by Mr. all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
We'll move to the communications portion of our agenda. And the first person that is requesting communication is Joan Goldman.
Mr. Frazier, you and I don't always agree, but what you said tonight is on jam. Transparency, I've said it for years. I was going to talk about something different, but after spectating on the very first meeting of the year, I think we need to discuss restoration. It's funny that you mentioned the bond proposal because the bond proposal was passed. I purport to fund raises of the top echelon of the city's workers. This city is in desperate need of leadership. This city is in desperate need of leadership that values their employees and their expertise, and not to put shackles on their necks and feet. Putting shackles on the employees hinders their growth, work performance, but more importantly, their souls. When will this city put directors in departments and get rid of the acting director's position? This city has redefined the more for less concept. This city has taken away the livelihoods of a lot of their employees while fattening up the so-called executives. This city can't even get a city administrator to move to Southfield from Lincoln Park. When you have the God-given power, you don't have to tell everybody. They can see it from your aura. Gene Carn had a song out over 20 years ago that said, "Don't let it go to your head." No. Lastly, I want to know, why does the Southfield Building Authority appear to cancel so many meetings? This city needs transparency. I agree with Mr. Frazier. It just seems like in this room, a lot of backdoor deals is going on, and the residents need to be a part of everything. And I'll keep saying that. And make sure you advertise these meetings that might be added so that I'll have a chance to sign up. Don't say 3 or 4 days, we're going to add a meeting, and then you say, you know, the time or the deadline to sign up has expired. So be diligent with that.
Every single meeting.
Well, don't put it in the paper on the wrong section of the paper in an ad that's smaller than my pinky finger. Do it appropriately. Thank you.
All right, the next person is Mr. Gerard Moore.
Madam President, my name is Gerard Mullen. My address is Post Office Box 155, Southfield, Michigan, 48037. This is the first council meeting of the new year, a new beginning under Public Act 267 of 1976, the Open Meetings Act. Under PA 267, this council is required at this very first meeting of this new year to come up with a meeting schedule for the rest of this year, but she didn't. Historically, you have failed to fully comply with this act in other ways also. For example, Section 5, subsection 2, which states that this notice shall state, and I quote, dates, times, and places, unquote. The dates and times are stated, but you have failed in the past to state the designated meeting areas. Also, you have failed to state in the past on your notice your telephone number as mandated by Section 4A of the Act. Hopefully, you will correct both of these situations in the future. Also, historically, updates for this yearly notice, as mandated by Section 5, subsection 3 of the Act, have been lacking. Currently, your updated notice of May 19th has been outdated for the last 6 months, but still it lingers on the legal notice bulletin boards to this very day, a bad omen for the new year. And I'd like to remind you folks that everything that I've just said that applies to this council regarding a yearly meeting schedule also applies to each of this council's subcommittees and applies to this city's 30-plus boards and commissions as required by Section 2A of the Act, which this city has historically failed to comply with for the most part. At this time, I'd like to thank this council for the Family Gerald Amendment of 2014. If you hadn't passed this amendment, I would not have discovered these PA 267 violations. Thank you, Madam President. Thank you.
That concludes the communication portion of the items to be brought.
Madam Chair, I'd like to bring an item up, and has to do with the appointments of the new boards and commissions of council. When I became council president in 2014, the first role I had to do was to set boards and committee appointments for 2014 and 15. And at that time, I had requested everyone to get a hold of me if they had a favorite committee or they would like to serve on one that they would like to continue on. I know we went through a difficulty with people being appointed and people leaving and that kind of thing, but I would, with all due respect to Joan Seymour, Ken Cyber has really busted his butt on this nonprofit housing, and he sits on the board and he's been following this thing through, and I'd like to see him carry out the responsibilities that he has on that board, and I don't know how long it's going to take, but he's been doing a great job from what I hear from the nonprofit, and I know everything over at our facilities are better than they were, and I would just like to see him retained. That's the only comment I have.
Any other questions?
I would support that. It's a very complicated issue, and it's one of the things that means a lot to the city. The rest of the boards and commissions are important, but this is a special thing, and he's 3/4 of the way through it, and needs to have continuity in order to make it complete. And it's not something that somebody can just step in and pick up, because he's worked on it for 2 years and 4 years. Okay, and it's well on its way. So I think we would, if we're really interested in seeing the city be successful, we shouldn't be making political appointments. We should be making appointments to put the best person for that position in that position. And Ken has done the job, and I think he needs to continue.
I'll refer to the city administrator as it relates to the appointment of the council president to the various, making the decisions to the various committees. Is that right? The council president has that, right?
Yeah, I pulled out the resolution. Yeah, I mean, you know, the committees, the appointments to the committees are that of the council president by the resolutions that have been passed, you know, throughout.
Well, Madam Chair, I'm not arguing whether the powers of the council president, when you're talking about the one situation which I think is to the benefit of the city and keeping someone aboard at a commission that they have served on, and the responsibility is such that I think it's important that they stay along with the program and having the knowledge and experience of what had gone on prior to their being on there up to now. And like I said, the first obligation of the council president when I was made council president, was to set the committees which I did on December 1st, and they held until, I took the oath of mayor on Wednesday of this month. So the term of the council president is 1 year, and whether by policy or belief or whatever that the committee should stand, as they were placed when the council president set them. I'm not going to argue the other commissions because I have no comments on those. But I do think that for the benefit of the city and the Donald Towers and all we're going through with the non-profit, I think it's very important that we consider this responsibility of this individual. And that's just my opinion. And like I said, I am very, it's a very unusual committee. I served on it. There's a lot of things. They get budgets done in paper, pencil. The thing was, holes in the walls, water coming through the ceilings, and run by this lady who, whatever. And I see now the nonprofit has changed hands, board has changed hands, and we're locating the seniors over here now. I mean, there's a lot of things happening that have been beneficial to the city. And for that reason, I just made that suggestion. I thought the council would agree that that is the situation, and we should continue on it.
Okay, I'll take that.
And I know some of my assignments got changed. I don't really care. I've told every president that has asked me about what boards and commissions or what committees I wanted to be on. And I said, whichever one you put me on, I'm going to do the best I know how. I don't really care which ones. But on this one, I think it's completely different. I'm only arguing this one thing because, Fred said tonight how much money we've saved already. And that's what we're supposed to be here for, making the best decisions for the city.
Departments are now running in the black where they were in the red.
Yeah. For years and years, people have been assigned to the nonprofit housing, and nothing happened. They all come back wringing their hands. Oh, we can't get anything done. And Ken went over there, got things started.
We did. Okay, seeing now we just